Chapter 847. The Malur Empire was one of the two empires of the continent, with a large territory. The territories of the nobles under them were naturally much bigger than the territories of the nobles of a small country, like the Lampari Kingdom. On the Marquis of Southgard's territory, there was over 500 hectares of farmland for this fall harvest, which far surpassed the territories of any nobles in the Lampari Kingdom. However, after a week, when all the farmland on the Marquis of Southgard's territory was harvested, there was only a measly 600 tons of wheat in the end. Based on the average yield, it was only a measly 150 pounds per moo. Compared to the current yield of over 500 pounds per moo in the Lampari Kingdom and the Principality of Constantine, it wasn't worth mentioning at all. This large difference, other than the backward farming methods on the Marquis of Southgard's territory, limiting the yield, the most important reason was the lack of fertilizer. But even with this yield, it made everyone in the Marquis of Southgard's territory, from the Marquis of Southgard himself to the slaves participating in the harvest, all of them were very happy. They all said that this year would be a good harvest. The more important thing was that to harvest the 500 hectares of farmland in the past, even if everyone in the territory worked together, it would take at least a month of hard work. If there were any small obstacles, they would need to extend this time. Before this, on the Marquis of Southgard's territory, there had been several times where they couldn't harvest on time, causing quite a bit of grain to be wasted. Now, with the help of the Cantona Chamber of Commerce, in just a single week, the 500 hectares of grain had been harvested. This amount of time was simply unbelievable. Moreover, during this time, the amount of manpower they used was shocking. Every time they harvested before, almost everyone in the territory would come out. But this time, from beginning to end, the Marquis of Southgard had only sent out 80 people to help with the harvest. Their main job was to open the bags and wait for the wheat to roll out of the magic harvester before carrying it to the transport magic car by the side of the field. Compared to the tedious and tiring work they had to do before, this time it was simply too easy for them. When Chairman Cantona told the Marquis of Southgard that it wasn't hard to harvest the 500 hectares of farmland, the Marquis of Southgard didn't dare believe it. After a week, seeing all the farmland being harvested and the several hundred tons of wheat being stored in the warehouse, the Marquis of Southgard's heart was filled with shock. It was no wonder when he went to the Drake Duchy, the Lampari Kingdom, and the Principality of Constantine, he saw all the farmland being reclaimed and planted of various kinds of crops. At that time, he found it strange because he didn't believe that there would be enough people in these three countries to complete the cultivation of these farmlands. Now of Southgard, of Southgard Southgard, of Southgard, the Marquis of Southgard. So the day after the harvest, the Marquis of Southgard specially held a large banquet to celebrate the fall harvest. At this banquet, the Marquis of Southgard signed a new contract with Chairman Cantona in front of everyone. The content of this contract was something that he had mentioned to the Marquis of Southgard before. It was to have the Cantona Chamber of Commerce help the Marquis of Southgard develop the land on his territory. They would transform the existing farmland, making it easier to farm, while also opening up more farmland. But the Marquis of Southgard hadn't personally seen this before, so he was a bit hesitant. Now that he had experienced the fall harvest, he no longer had any doubts. This time, he had signed a 5-year contract with the Cantona Chamber of Commerce. In these 5 years, the Cantona Chamber of Commerce would not only help the Marquis of Southgard develop all the farmland on his territory, they would also help him train some people who were skilled in using the agricultural magic machines. When he saw the magic harvester easily turn the wheat stalks into grains, the Marquis of Southgard had already made his decision. He had to buy some agricultural magic machines from the new flyer and work hard to learn how to farm. When the Cantona Chamber of Commerce was helping the Marquis of Southgard with the harvest on his territory, there were some nobles from the Malur Empire that were close to the Marquis of Southgard who had sent people to visit. With the amazing performance of the Cantona Chamber of Commerce during the harvest, these nobles all sent invitations to the Cantona Chamber of Commerce, hoping that the Cantona Chamber of Commerce would help them with the harvest. Chairman Cantona naturally warmly welcomed them, But it was a pity that the Cantona Chamber of Commerce's manpower and agricultural magic machines were limited, so it was hard for him to accept all of them. In the end, he chose a few nobles that were close to the Marquis of Southgard to accept. As for the other nobles, he gave them a clear path, which was to buy various agricultural magic machines from the New Flyer. So when the fall harvest began, orders from the Malur Empire flew to the New Flyer that was several thousand kilometers away. Sir Chairman, this number of orders is a bit unexpected. Kennard picked up the report in his hand and said to Sue E in a surprised voice, "Look, I've counted the orders from the Marlow Empire in the past few days and found that just in terms of the Magic Harvester, there are over 700 orders. This number is even more than the Magic Harvesters in the Principality of Constantine." Of course, the Malur Empire isn't a small country like our Principality of Constantine. It's one of the two empires on the continent. 700 is just the beginning. If we keep this momentum, I think that we'll be selling 7,000 magic harvesters to the Malur Empire in the future, or even more. He said with a smile. Kennard gave a slight nod and couldn't help giving a sigh of praise. Being able to enter the Malur Empire really is great. The surrounding countries are still too small, so the market is close to saturation. For example, there hasn't been much demand for agricultural magic machines in the past 2 years. Now that the Malur Empire is joining us, we can strengthen this work. After saying this, Kennard looked at Sue E with a thoughtful look in his eyes. Sir Chairman, tell me, since the agricultural magic machines bring such great benefits, why don't we use them and knock on the doors of the Canla Empire? I think that there isn't a country on the continent that can reject a method that can allow their farmland to produce more food. He shook his head. This isn't the same. The reason why we can develop smoothly in the Malur Empire is mainly because the Marquis of Southgard is an understanding person. He is friendly to us, so our cooperation is smooth. But the Canla Empire... He knit his brows with a bit of dissatisfaction. I don't know if it's my prejudice, but I feel that the people of this country are naturally arrogant, which makes our cooperation with them filled with obstacles. I don't like the attitude of the people of the Canla Empire. It makes me feel that they don't have any sincerity in cooperating with us. Kennard gave a bitter laugh before saying with a nod, Sir Chairman, this isn't your misconception. Actually, arrogance has always been a characteristic of the Canla Empire. This empire has always thought of itself as the ruler of the continent, looking down on other countries. This is a bit related to the history of the Canla Empire. Sir Chairman, you can look up their history when you have time. I don't have time to look up their history. He gave a shrug. If they insist on this arrogant attitude, the one who will suffer in the end is themselves. Moreover, you should know that I have already revised my plan to promote the Canla Empire. I understand. But Sir Chairman, are you really going to do this? Kennard slightly knit his brows. I feel that doing this will be very dangerous. If we aren't careful, the entire New Flyer might be seriously damaged. You think too highly of the Canla Empire. He revealed a faint smile as he patted Kennard's shoulder. Do your things properly, I'll go and see how the guard are doing. Whether my plan succeeds or not depends on them. Kennard gave a slight nod. There was still a trace of worry in his eyes as he watched Sue E leave. When Sue E left his office, Kennard sat down again and prepared to continue his work. Now that the New Flyer was involved in a wide range of industries, there were many things that needed to be taken care of. Although after the reorganization last time, the New Flyer had already divided the various industries under its name, and each department had its own management staff, making it much easier for him as the CEO. But with how big the New Flyer was, there were many things that he needed to take care of as the CEO. When he was preparing to arrange for the Magic Machine Department to take care of the Malur Empire's order for agricultural magic machines, there was suddenly someone knocking on the door. Kennard frowned slightly when he heard the rapid and violent knocks on the door. Come in. The door was suddenly pushed open, and a middle-aged man rushed in front of the desk, tightly holding a letter in his hand as he handed it to Kennard. Sir, something big has happened. This middle-aged man was the director in charge of information gathering in the New Flyer. Seeing his expression, Kennard's face sunk a bit as he took the letter. After reading the letter, Kennard's eyes opened wide as they were filled with surprise. There was even a trace of unease. It really was something big. Chapter 848. Is that the Principality of Constantine? Sharon looked at the coastline in the distance and asked with narrowed eyes. Yes, Sir Sharon. You can reach Count Dole's territory if you go ashore not far ahead. Standing next to him was a middle-aged man with a kind face and a slightly plump figure. He replied respectfully, "It's a pity that it's no longer his territory." Sharon said coldly, Yes. Count Dole is still locked up in the prison of the Principality of Constantine. His private territory has already been taken back by the Principality of Constantine." The middle-aged man immediately said with a smile. Sharon changed the topic and asked, "I heard that all the private territories of the nobles in the Principality of Constantine have been taken back by the Principality of Constantine?" A trace of embarrassment flashed across the middle-aged man's face. Yes, they were all taken back last year. So even though the place in front is Count Dole's territory, it's actually just a territory that he used to own. Why did you agree? Sharon continued to ask curiously. Count Andre, private territories are more important to nobles than their lives. In the end, the Principality of Constantine took back your territories, and you actually agreed? The middle-aged man called Count Andre's side with a bitter smile. What could we do if we didn't agree? This was forced by Sui. If we didn't agree, what awaited us would be the New Flyers Guards. Hearing Count Andre mention the New Flyers Guards, Sharon's expression became a bit more serious. After a moment of silence, he asked in a deep voice, "Are the New Flyers Guards very strong?" Count Andre's body suddenly trembled slightly. A trace of fear appeared in his eyes. He nodded vigorously. "Very strong. Really strong. Sir Sharon, please forgive me for being blunt. Although the subordinates you brought are all elites, but if they face the New Flyers Guards, please be more careful." Sharon frowned slightly. He turned his head and looked at his subordinates who had gathered on the deck and were on standby. He was a bit uncertain. Although he had collected a lot of information about the new flyer before setting off, the information he could obtain wasn't much. The information about the New Flyers Guards was even less. The only thing that could show the strength of the New Flyers Guards was that they made several moves against the nobles in the Principality of Constantine. Sharon didn't know the details of these moves because of the lack of information. From the results, the guards of the nobles in the Principality of Constantine couldn't resist the New Flyers Guards. In the end, the New Flyer had the absolute right to speak in the Principality of Constantine. But in Sharon's eyes, this result didn't show anything. Because the nobles in the Principality of Constantine were just a group of rich people in the countryside in Sharon's eyes. Their so-called guards were just a group of people who weren't that much stronger than normal people. Not only did they not have any training, but they didn't even have basic equipment. So how could they have any battle strength? So based on this, the New Flyers Guards couldn't show any battle strength when they crushed the nobles of the Principality of Constantine. At most, they could be considered a normal team. After thinking for a bit, Sharon shook his head. Forget it. No matter how strong they are just the guards of small company. How strong can they be? Although in front of Duke Windsor, Sharon had a cautious attitude, advising Duke Windsor to pay more attention to the New Flyer. In his heart, he didn't really put the New Flyer in his eyes. In the end, the New Flyer was just a small company in a small Principality of Constantine. How could they compare to the subordinates of the respected Lord Governor of the southern province of the Camel Empire? Sharon looked at the guards of Duke Windsor wearing bright armor and holding sharp weapons, and his lips curled into a faint smile. The Lord Duke had sent 3,000 of his most elite subordinates. Under his command, not to mention a small New Flyer, even the entire Principality of Constantine could be easily captured. The most important thing was that he was certain that the New Flyer didn't dare to make a move against him. In the matter with Count Dole, although the New Flyer made a move, they didn't kill a single subordinate of the Duchess. This meant that the New Flyer had some scruples in their hearts. Hey, seeing that I brought so many elites this time, if that New Flyer Chairman Sue is smart enough, he should know that his only choice is to be obedient. The 10 ships carrying Sharon and the 3,000 elite subordinates of Duke Windsor slowly approached the coast with the sea breeze. This was a small port under Count Andre's control. It was very remote, so the arrival of these 10 ships didn't attract anyone's attention. Sharon and his 3,000 elite subordinates disembarked from the ship and immediately set out for the depths of the shore. According to the plan, he was planning to enter Count Dole's private manor with the 3,000 elite subordinates. After occupying that place, they would temporarily settle down before slowly negotiating with the new flyer. However, as soon as the group walked out of the cliff where the port was located, they bumped into a group of about 300 people. Looking at the group of people who looked like soldiers but were only wearing simple armor and holding all kinds of strange things in their hands, Challen raised his eyebrows at Count Andre beside him and asked, "Who are these guys?" Count Andre had a nervous expression as he replied in a low voice, "They're the subordinates of a nearby noble. It really is strange. Why are they here today? Could it be that they received some news?" "It's not the guards of the new flyer." Sharon seemed a bit disappointed before turning to nod at the guard captain beside him. "Take care of them. Don't let a single one escape." Hearing Sharon's orders, Count Andre was surprised. "Sir Sharon..." Before he could say anything, the guard captain standing beside Sharon waved his hand to signal for them to attack. Sharon had brought Duke Windsor's elite subordinates this time, so they were normally trained. After receiving the order, 500 people raised their bows and arrows. After a while, a rain of arrows flew out at the 300 people on the other side. The people on the other side were curiously looking at the group of people that had suddenly appeared, but when they saw the countless arrows flying at them, they were shocked. Being caught off guard, the rain of arrows kept falling. Ding, 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 ding. Countless arrows mercilessly smashed into the seemingly thin and simple armor worn by the more than 300 people, producing a series of crisp sounds. Humph, a motley crew. Sharon curled his lips in disdain. But after that, the cold smile on his face froze. Although the rain of arrows covered the 300-plus people without a single one escaping, when the rain of arrows fell, all the arrows hit the armor of those people, but did not cause even the slightest bit of injury. Sharon's eyes widened as he looked at the 300 people standing there calmly. He couldn't believe his eyes. The armors of those fellows looked so thin and light. How could they remain unharmed under the sharp arrows of the elites he had brought with him? He turned to look at the guard captain and found that he was also shocked, clearly not believing what he was seeing. The 300 people on the other side were stunned by the sudden attack, but they quickly reacted. "Damn, brothers, they want to kill us. Go all out against them." An angry roar came from the 300 people. Sharon coldly snorted when he heard this. He thought to himself, "Although your armor is a bit strange, you dare to fight against my 3,000 elite subordinates with a mere 300 people? This is simply seeking death. Ike, take care of them. Don't show mercy." Sharon ordered the guard captain beside him in a deep voice. "Yes, Lord." Guard Captain Ike was about to raise his hand to give the order to attack when he saw the 300 people raising the strange things in their hands. So. Countless dense sounds of arrows breaking through the air rang out, and the front row of Duke Windsor's personal guards didn't even have a chance to cry out as they fell down. After the first row fell, the second row, the third row, it was like harvesting rice straws. A huge gap appeared in the originally perfect formation of the guards because of the hundreds of people who had fallen. Seeing this, Sharon sucked in a breath of cold air. The movements of those fellows were a mess. It was clear that they weren't well-trained elites. However, with the strange things in their hands, they could release such powerful battle strength. Could this be a military magic machine? Sharon asked Count Andre beside him. Count Andre's expression was very ugly as he slowly shook his head. "No, this is just a magic repeating crossbow. It can't be considered a real military magic machine." "This isn't considered? Then wouldn't a real military magic machine be even stronger?" Sharon was shocked. When he turned around, he saw that more than 100 of his subordinates had died while they were talking. Although Captain Ike wanted to organize a counterattack, Although the other side only had 300 people, the arrows they released were very dense, and they didn't have any gaps at all. It was a good thing that Sharon had brought the elites of Duke Windsor. So after a bit of panic, they found cover and barely managed to resist this attack. Count Andre and Sharon were hiding behind a large rock. After looking out, he said to Sharon in a deep voice, "Lord Sharon, I suggest that you immediately lead them to retreat. It's best if you return to the Kamla Empire right now." Sharon knit his brows. He wanted to say that he had 3,000 subordinates, and the other side only had 300 people. So why should he retreat? But the fact was that the other side's 300 people were stronger than his 3,000 subordinates, suppressing them to the point that they couldn't fight back at all. But no matter what, it was impossible to choose to retreat now. Sharon gave a hand signal to Captain Ike, telling him to wait for the other side's attack to slow down before immediately launching a counterattack. Ike nodded to show he understood. Sharon then turned to Count Andre to ask, "Count Andre, you said that this isn't a real military magic machine. Then tell me, isn't the real military magic machine even more shocking?" "That's right. The real military magic machine is far stronger than you can imagine." "Hong!" The rock behind the two of them suddenly exploded, and the two people hiding behind couldn't react at all. They were hit by the rocks that filled the sky and instantly fainted. Chapter 849. This is the big matter you were talking about. Sui looked at Kennard with a bit of smile. Seeing Su Yi's relaxed appearance, Kennard was stunned. "Sir Chairman, this isn't a big matter. Count Andre has already confessed. These people are all from the Kamla Empire. They're the subordinates of the Kamla Empire's southern province's governor. Now that 600 of them have died, do you think that the Kamla Empire's southern province's governor will let this go easily?" Sui asked with a smile. "Then what do you think we should do?" Kennard had clearly already considered this, so he replied without any hesitation, "This matter can't be hidden. In my opinion, we should use the Parliament's name to capture Baron Prado and his 300 subordinates and hand them over to Duke Windsor. If we look at it from an objective point of view, Kennard, your method of handling this isn't bad." Sui nodded before changing the topic. "But, Kennard, have you thought of a problem? Do you know why Duke Windsor suddenly sent all these subordinates to our Principality of Constantine? Moreover, why are they acting so sneakily? Duke Windsor's subordinates haven't taken the initiative to explain, so I'm not too clear." Kennard hesitantly said. Sui laughed and patted Kennard's shoulder. "You just focus on managing the company. You don't need to care about anything else. We're Count Andre and Duke Windsor subordinates. Bring me to them." Kennard looked at Sui with knitted brows. He seemed to have heard some other meaning from Sui's words. Could it be that the president had already anticipated and prepared for this matter, which was why he was so calm and collected? The doubtful Kennard brought Sui to a hospital in a New Flight Commerce main base. When Duke Windsor's subordinates fought with Baron Prado's subordinates, the final result was that Baron Prado's subordinates only suffered 13 light injuries, while Duke Windsor's subordinates died over 600. The remaining over 2,000 people were all injured to varying degrees. If it wasn't for the timely rescue, the number of people who died would have been far higher than 600. Now that all these people had been sent to the hospital, the originally large hospital was directly filled with people. Even the empty space was filled with people. It was a good thing that it was early autumn and the weather was a bit warm, so it was bearable to lie outside. When Sui and Kennard came to the hospital, they were surrounded by the New Flyers guards, sealing off all communication with the outside world. Although this affected the normal lives of the Frestec Chamber of Commerce's main base, they couldn't do anything about this. After walking into the hospital, they heard a lot of noise inside. "Quickly call your chairman over. Otherwise, we'll tear down this broken place of yours. Why aren't you letting us go? You actually dare lock us up. Do you know who we are? Damn you." He suddenly raised his hand, and a small fireball came out of his hand, instantly landing on the chest of a person loudly cursing in the yard. Although this fellow was wearing full body armor, he didn't have much resistance to magic. After being hit by the fireball, there was an explosion as he flew out, falling onto the grass without making a sound. All the noise disappeared, and everyone's eyes fell on Sui. Sui didn't look at them and turned to Kennard to say, "Since you caught them, why didn't you disarm them? Isn't this increasing the danger?" Kennard was stunned. "Sir Chairman, they are people from the Kamla Empire." Sui shook his head and ignored Kennard. He turned to the captain of the New Flyers Guards in the distance and waved his hand. When he came over, Sui pointed at the subordinates of the Kamla Empire's Duke Windsor in the yard and said, "Take off their weapons for me. Letting these fellows remain armed in our New Flyers' important place. Has your head been kicked by a donkey?" The captain was stunned by Sui's scolding. He looked at Kennard, and seeing that he didn't say anything, he nodded and quickly had the guards in charge of disarming Duke Windsor subordinates. Although these people wanted to resist, the New Flyers Guards had large amounts of strong and agile other race members. Not to mention the difference in equipment between both sides. Even if they had the same conditions, they definitely wouldn't be a match for the New Flyers Guards. Not to mention that most of them were injured, so they could only helplessly accept the fate of being disarmed. Kennard silently watched the situation in front of him as a bit of thought flashed in his eyes. Seeing that the outside finally calmed down, Sui entered the hospital with Kennard. Sui didn't plan on seeing Count Andre at all. He directly went to the room prepared for Sharon. It had been 3 days since Sharon led his subordinates to fight Baron Prado's subordinates, so Sharon had already woken up. When Sui and Kennard came in, Sharon was lying in bed, looking out the window, not knowing what he was thinking. Hearing the sound of people coming in, Sharon turned around. He first saw Kennard before looking at Sui. His eyes narrowed a bit before relaxing and revealing a smile. "If my guesses aren't wrong, you're the New Flyers Sui, Chairman Sui, right?" Sui was a bit surprised. "You recognize me?" "No, I guessed." Sharon shook his head. "Guessed?" Sharon pointed at Kennard standing behind Sui. "Other than the chairman, I don't think there is anyone else who can make this Kennard stand behind them, right?" Sui looked back at Kennard and couldn't help but laugh. "Very good. Looks like you're a smart person. Then I don't have to say so much nonsense." Sui pulled over a chair and sat down beside the bed. At the same time, he waved his hand to let the others leave the room, leaving only Kennard. "Is it okay if I call you Baron Sharon?" Sharon smiled. "Just call me Sharon. I'm just a loser. What's the point of calling me Baron?" "Loser? It was Baron Prado's subordinates who defeated you. It has nothing to do with New Flyer." Sui immediately denied. Sharon looked at Sui with a gaze of deep meaning. "Chairman Sui, the military magic machines used by Baron Prado's subordinates, you dare say that they aren't related to your Frestac Chamber of Commerce?" Sui smiled but didn't say anything. Sharon suddenly let out a long sigh. "Chairman Sui, in fact, before I came to the Principality of Constantine, even though I did a lot of research on New Flyer, I still looked down on you guys in my heart. But I didn't expect, just as I came to the Principality of Constantine, reality gave me a slap in the face." Sharon took a deep breath, and his expression became serious. He stared at Sui and asked, "Chairman Sui, please tell me, the military magic machines used by Baron Prado's subordinates, are they all the military magic machines produced by the Shinfei Chamber of Commerce?" Sui still smiled but didn't say anything. Sharon immediately understood Sui's meaning and nodded. "It seems like that is the case. Okay, Chairman Sui, I think I understand. You can tell me why you're here." Sui couldn't help but smile again. This Sharon really was a smart person that exceeded his expectations. This was good. It would save him a lot of effort. And if Sharon behaved well enough, he might be able to change his plan accordingly. Baron Sharon, I'm here this time to announce something to you." Sui finally spoke. "What is it?" Sui took out a document from his chest and gave it to Sharon. "Because you led 3,000 fully armed soldiers on the territory of the Principality of Constantine without permission, the Congress has designated you as an illegal armed invader. According to the laws of the Principality, you and your subordinates will be put in prison and await the final verdict. Is that so?" Sharon's expression was indifferent. He didn't look at the document at all. Instead, he stared at Sui and asked, "Chairman Sui, do you really plan on doing this?" "It's not that I plan on doing this, but you violated the laws of the Principality. This is the decision of the Congress. Su, he explained with a smile. Sharon snorted softly. Chairman Su, you just said that there's no need for so much nonsense. In my opinion, those two sentences are all nonsense. Our fate isn't decided by the Congress of the Principality of Constantine, but by you and the Duke. I think you should be very clear. Yes, I'm very clear. So I decided to lock you up first. As for what will happen in the end, it will depend on the Duke's reaction. Su Yi replied with a smile and stood up. Seeing that Su Yi was about to leave, Sharon suddenly became anxious and raised his voice. Chairman Su, we're all smart people. I know what you want to do. Now that I've seen it with my own eyes, I think there's a possibility of cooperation between us. As long as you let me go, I can definitely convince the Duke to let bygones be bygones. Let bygones be bygones? Su Yi smiled softly. I still hope for a successful cooperation, but this also depends on whether you're that important to the Duke, right? Sharon was suddenly speechless, and his expression became somewhat hesitant. Although he believed that he should be one of the Duke's most trusted subordinates, he wasn't sure if the Duke would continue to trust him after he brought 3,000 of the Duke's most elite men to the Principality of Constantine. Not only did he fail to achieve his goal, but they were all trapped here. Seeing him like this, Su Yi shook his head. He waved to Kinnard, and they left the room together. Chapter 850. When they returned to Kinnard's office, the silent Kinnard finally said, Sir Chairman, with this kind of attitude, aren't you worried that you'll anger Duke Windsor? Su Yi looked at him. He had already explained this problem to Kinnard several times, but he still didn't understand. It seemed like the people of this world had a deep fear of a large country like the Canla Empire. Even Kinnard, who came from a large noble family of the Lampari Kingdom, found it hard to change. But this couldn't be blamed on them. After all, the Canla Empire could be considered the largest and oldest empire in the signs. It was even higher than the Malar Empire in people's minds. It was normal for the people of the small countries to fear the Canla Empire. But Su Yi was different. He came from Earth, so he didn't have a deep impression of the countries of the Signs continent. Adding in the fact that he came from the Celestial Empire, which had always been a large country on Earth, he didn't have the natural fear that a small country would have when facing a large country. The Canla Empire might be a giant that Kinnard feared, but in Su Yi's eyes, it was big, but it wasn't scary at all. Whenever he thought of how Sharon's 3,000 subordinates were easily defeated by Baron Prado's 300 subordinates, Su Yi couldn't help wanting to laugh. Baron Prado's subordinates were only equipped with some magic repeating crossbows and magic bazookas, but they could defeat 3,000 enemies with 300 of them. It could be seen how terrifying the military magic machines were for the soldiers. Moreover, Baron Prado's subordinates were just a motley crew. They didn't have any military training at all. They only knew how to use the military magic machines. They didn't even know how to use them. Compared to the Frestac Chamber of Commerce's guards who were equipped with large amounts of high-grade military magic machines, the battle strength of Baron Prado's subordinates was several times worse. Even they could easily defeat Duke Windsor's subordinates, so if it was the new Flyer Guards, it would be even easier. It should be said that since experiencing the civil war in the Lampari Kingdom and fighting with Duke Wine and the other nobles in the Principality of Constantine, Su Yi had a deep understanding of the traditional military strength of this world. To him, the appearance of the military magic machines had completely changed the style of warfare in this world. The army that still had the same style as before, when facing enemies equipped with military magic machines, there was no chance of resisting them at all. The surrounding countries had a certain feeling about this, so they had always been eager to buy various military magic machines from the New Flyers' military magic machines, hoping that they could increase the strength of their country's armies. At the same time, this was also the reason why the surrounding countries were so wary of the New Flyer. Other than not wanting to offend the New Flyer and not being able to obtain the military magic machines, they were also afraid of the battle strength of the New Flyer Guards. The Canla Empire had too little understanding of the New Flyer, so they acted high and mighty, not putting the New Flyer in their eyes at all. However, in Su Yi's eyes, although the Canla Empire was one of the two empires on the continent, it was only a paper tiger. Kennard was still afraid of the Kamla Empire, even now. Other than the deep-rooted ideas in his heart, it was also because he had always been in charge of the internal management of the New Flyer. He rarely touched the military magic machine department or the New Flyer guards, so he didn't understand the strength of the New Flyer guards. Thinking of this, he felt that he had made a mistake before. Kennard was still the CEO of the New Flyer, so completely isolating him from the military department of the New Flyer didn't seem appropriate. After thinking for a bit, he didn't explain this to Kennard and pulled him out. The two left the office and sat in Su Yi's private magic sedan, quickly heading northwest of the New Flight Commerce main base. The New Flight Commerce main base was located in the northwest corner of the Principality of Constantine. To the west was the sea, and to the north was the border between the Black Rice Wasteland and the Principality of Constantine. In the most northwest corner of this land, there was another area that had been opened 2 years ago. It was used as the testing ground for the Frestac Chamber of Commerce's new military magic machines and the training ground for the Frestac Chamber of Commerce's guards. Kennard saw that he had brought him here, and he couldn't help being a bit surprised. Because before this, he had never taken the initiative to let him touch the matters of the New Flyer military magic machine department, so he consciously didn't touch these matters. Now that he had suddenly brought him here, why was it? However, he didn't give him time to ask this question. He drove the magic sedan into the base and drove to a wide area in the north of the base before stopping. When Kennard got out, he heard a large sound that came from the sky in front of him. Looking up, he found that there were 5 magic airships floating in the sky. The magic airships kept releasing beams of light in front of them, moving back and forth in the sky. In between these beams of light, there was a shadow that was moving at a high speed, not being touched by these beams of light at all. "What is this?" Kennard asked in a surprised voice. "This is the guards practicing combat with Great Magician Runa." He looked up and replied with a smile. "It seems like the guards have improved. It seems like the guards have improved again. They can actually suppress Great Magician Juno like this with just 5 magic airships. Not bad. Not bad. Great Magician Runa?" Kennard was even more surprised. Looking at the sky, he realized that the shadow that was darting around in the sky was really a human figure. According to what Yi said, was that Great Magician Runa? But Great Magician Runa was an incomparably powerful great magician. In Kennard's opinion, almost every person who could become a great mage was able to topple mountains and overturn seas. They were incomparably powerful figures that only existed in myths and legends. They were not people that ordinary people could contend against. But the company's guards had used 5 magic airships to force a great magician to flee in all directions. This really subverted Kennard's common sense. After looking at it for a while, the 5 magic airships in the sky stopped attacking, and the figure moving in the sky also stopped. Kennard looked carefully and found that it was Great Magician Runa. "Kennard, do you know why I brought you here to see this?" Yi beside him suddenly asked this. Kennard was silent for a bit before looking up at the magic airships and Great Magician Runa in the sky. He hesitantly said, "I think, based on Sir Chairman's attitude towards Baron Sharon, you should be telling me that our company has the power to resist Duke Windsor, so we could be a bit more forceful?" Kennard, you really are an understanding person." He nodded with a faint smile. "In the previous meeting, you suggested that I should give some benefits to the Kamla Empire. That way, it would be easier to find a representative from the Kamla Empire and achieve our goal of entering the Kamla Empire market. But I rejected you. Do you still remember?" "I do." Kennard nodded. Recalling the situation at that time, he replied, "Sir Chairman, you told me that although our company had to enter the Kamla Empire market, we had to maintain our stance and not hand our fate to others." "Yes. I also said that if you want to control your own fate, you have to have enough strength. What I'm showing you now is the true strength of our company. Can't you see anything from this?" He asked with a smile. Kennard looked up at the 5 magic airships and Great Magician Runa in the sky. After thinking for a while, he let out a sigh and said with a nod, "I can roughly understand Sir Chairman's meaning. But Sir Chairman, the Kamla Empire is one of the 2 empires after all. Its foundation far surpasses your imagination and far surpasses the limits of our company. Perhaps we can compete with Duke Windsor, but we definitely can't compete with the entire Canla Empire. Moreover, if we completely anger Duke Windsor, what benefits do we have? Of course, there are benefits, and they're very deep. As for the benefits in front of us, it is to show everyone our attitude. I want to use this matter to tell everyone that the Principality of Constantine is our new flyer's territory, and anyone who tries to touch the Principality of Constantine is going against our new flyer. So, he said. Kennard gave a bitter laugh. Even if the other side is the Camla Empire, why is the Camla Empire an exception? So, he pretended to be surprised. Kennard was surprised before giving another bitter laugh. Sir Chairman, aren't you being a bit too confident? Su'i laughed and patted Kennard's shoulder, not wanting to explain. The reason why he brought Kennard here today and had him watch the new Flyers Guards training was to let him understand his true thoughts. He didn't plan on changing his ideas. For a deeply rooted idea like the Camla Empire is strong, Su'i knew that it couldn't be shaken in a short period of time. If he wanted to change it, he could only wait for more facts to wash it over and over again. The key was in front of him. Chapter 851. Duke Windsor's subordinates had secretly invaded the Principality of Constantine. Perhaps it was a large matter for Kennard, but for the signs, there weren't many people who knew about it, and even if they did, it was a small matter that no one cared about. At the beginning of autumn, for all the countries and people on this continent, there was only one thing that mattered the most: the autumn harvest. Since New Flyer invented the agricultural magic machines, after 8 years of promoting them, the countries to the southwest of the signs had already popularized this new mechanized farming method using the agricultural magic machines. While the other countries were working hard on their harvests, the Lampari Kingdom, the Kingdom of Ruhr, the Kandra Duchy, the Mirando Duchy, the Norton Duchy, and the other countries had already put all the grain in their granaries. Even the Fa Kingdom and the Sac Kingdom that had just started promoting mechanized farming in the past 2 years had already finished their initial harvests. But it was different from the other countries that had developed a complete system after many years of development. The Fa Kingdom and the Sac Kingdom had only started promoting mechanized farming in the past 2 years, so they had only completed their basic harvesting system. As for the mechanical planting and farmland modification, they were still in the process of being perfected. To solve these problems, according to their estimates, the two countries had sent orders to New Flyer for magic plowing machines, magic excavators, magic forklifts, and other agricultural magic machines and construction magic machines. The Sac Kingdom's order was over 7 million gold coins. Because the Fa Kingdom was bigger than the Sac Kingdom and had more land to farm, their order was also higher, reaching over 10 million gold coins. But New Flyer's production capacity had always been a problem. Adding in the fact that they had entered the large Malar Empire market this year, they had good prospects for development. So to complete the orders from these two countries, New Flyer had given them at least 2 years. The Sac Kingdom and the Fa Kingdom were a bit dissatisfied with this, but the only one that could make agricultural magic machines and construction magic machines was New Flyer, so they couldn't do anything. Other than the agricultural magic machines, there was another thing that attracted the attention of the surrounding countries, which was fertilizer. Ever since the introduction of chemical fertilizers and their large-scale use in the Principality of Constantine, the Principality of Constantine's grain production had increased on a large scale. Subsequently, the Lampari Kingdom introduced chemical fertilizers in large quantities, greatly increasing the Lampari Kingdom's average yield per moo. This new product had been enthusiastically sought after by the neighboring countries. In the past 2 years, the Moon Shadow tribe had been able to earn over 2 million gold coins a year just by relying on the fertilizer, far surpassing the Night Song tribe. Of course, this couldn't be separated from their cooperation with the New Flyer. With the support of the large amounts of magic machines provided by the New Flyer, the Moon Shadow tribe was able to open over 10 fertilizer factories, increasing their fertilizer output and increasing their income. However, this was still far from enough. Today was the Moon Shadow Chamber of Commerce's monthly shipment day. The Moon Shadow Chamber of Commerce's warehouse outside Shinfei City was filled with people filled with people from various countries. These people even came from a fog kingdom that was close to 2,000 kilometers away. Moreover, in order to smoothly receive the fertilizer today, these people have been waiting outside the Moon Shadow Chamber of Commerce's warehouse since last night, afraid that other people would steal the goods that belonged to them. When the Moon Shadow Chamber of Commerce opened at 8 in the morning, a group of people immediately swarmed in. Astasia, who was in charge of receiving people, was already familiar with this scene. She looked over the crowd in front of her and shouted with an expressionless face, "Everyone line up and come one by one. If you don't line up, you won't receive the goods." As soon as her voice fell, the crowd obediently formed a long line and no one dared to go against her at all. It wasn't that no one had tried to disobey before, but they were blacklisted by the Moon Shadow tribe and wouldn't be able to provide any fertilizer to the company that they belonged to. Thus, ever since then, the beautiful elven Lady Astasia's words were more effective than the king's decree. No one dared to go against them. Seeing the noisy crowd quickly return to order, Astasia couldn't help but shake her head lightly. Why were these humans always unwilling to learn from their mistakes? Why did she have to remind them every time? If they were elves, she believed that she would only need to remind them once, and they would obediently line up every time. She wouldn't have to spend so much effort to remind them again. However, thinking about it from another perspective, perhaps it was because humans always wanted to break the rules that they were always able to create new changes and constantly surpass themselves, surpassing all other races on this continent, and eventually becoming the rulers of this continent. The elder told her and her elves to interact with humans more and even try to integrate into human society. The goal was to let her elves learn the advantages of humans and also to allow the elves to surpass themselves and find their own place on this continent. Of course, all of this was thanks to the New Flyer, a company founded by humans. All right, first one, the Roosevelt Chamber of Commerce. 2 tons of wheat fertilizer and 1 ton of wheat fertilizer. Hand over the receipt and go to the warehouse in the back to receive it. With Astasia's soft call, the chubby merchant in front came forward with a smile and handed over the bill he had already prepared. He followed the other 2 elves into the warehouse, and with the help of the human workers hired by the Moon Shadow Chamber of Commerce, they quickly moved the fertilizer into the large transport magic car waiting outside. This merchant came from the kingdom of Ruhr's capital, Caracas City, which was close to 1,000 kilometers away. Even if they set off today, they would arrive tomorrow at the earliest. The kingdom of Ruhr's fall harvest was already over, so there were many fields in the kingdom that were waiting for the fertilizer, so it couldn't be delayed. The merchants handed over their receipts one by one and entered the warehouse. The fertilizer that had been piled up in the warehouse quickly disappeared. Only half the morning had passed, and it was about to run out. It was a good thing that the Moon Shadow Chamber of Commerce already knew that this was the month with the highest demand after the fall harvest, so they had prepared ahead of time. They had prepared 5 full warehouses, which was enough to supply everything. But even like this, it was hard to satisfy everyone's needs. The merchants in the back saw that the fertilizer in the warehouse was decreasing and couldn't help feeling a bit anxious. At this time, there was a fellow on the line who was still entangled with Astasia, which made people even more impatient. "You're asking me what fertilizer is used for?" Astasia looked at the middle-aged man in front of her. Judging from his appearance, he looked to be in his 50s. Half of his brown hair had turned white. She had been in charge of the fertilizer warehouse for more than 2 years, but this was the first time she met someone who came here to ask about the fertilizer. "That's right, I can see that many people want to buy it. So this thing must be quite good. This beautiful elf young miss. Can you tell me what it is used for?" The middle-aged man was very polite as he asked this with a sincere expression. Before Astasia could answer, the merchants behind him started to shout impatiently. "Hey, you don't even know what fertilizer is. Why are you lining up here?" "That's right. Don't waste time if you're not buying. Don't cause trouble here. There are still people who don't know what fertilizer is used for. Which mountain did this barbarian come from?" Hearing the words of the people behind him, the middle-aged man's expression was a bit awkward, but he still stared at Astasia seriously and waited for her answer. Astasia hesitated for a bit and remembered the content of the training in New Flyer. She put on a smile and patiently replied, "Fertilizer is used for farmland." It can help crops survive and grow better, and it can effectively increase the output of various crops in the farmland. Really? The middle-aged man's eyes widened in surprise. This thing is actually so magical? Hearing this, the people behind him became impatient again. Nonsense. If it's not magical, why do you think we're buying it? That's right. If it's not so magical, why are so many of us lining up here? Miss Astasia, this guy dares to doubt you. What a joke. Astasia maintained her smile and continued to explain, whether the effect is magical or not, you'll know after you use it. But based on your question, I'm guessing that this should be your first time in the Stantine Duchy and touching fertilizer, right? Yes. The middle-aged man nodded. I'm from the Kamla Empire. Originally, I just wanted to come here and see what the legendary Shinfei Chamber of Commerce's various magic machines look like. On the way, I saw so many people lining up here, so I came to take a look out of curiosity. I didn't expect that other than the new flyer, there's also a Chamber of Commerce opened by the elves, and there's even something as magical as fertilizer. It really opened my eyes. Hearing that he was from the Kamla Empire, the people around him suddenly became silent. The Kamla Empire had always been a high and mighty empire in the hearts of the people in the surrounding small countries. People from the Kamla Empire were naturally looked up to. But on second thought, even if this guy was from the Kamla Empire, he didn't even know about magic machines, and it was the first time he had even heard of fertilizer. It was really a bit ignorant. Thinking about it this way, it didn't seem strange that he was from the Kamla Empire. Astasia didn't have such complicated thoughts like the people around her. After hearing his self-introduction, she started to promote the fertilizer according to what she had been taught during the training. Then this customer, since this is your first time coming into contact with fertilizer, please allow me to formally recommend this epic-making product to you. Chapter 852. Half an hour later, Old Man Walford staggered out of the crowd and left the fertilizer warehouse of the Moon Shadow Chamber of Commerce. Following behind him was a small cart carrying 20 bags of fertilizer that was being pushed by a strong leopard beast man. They stopped in front of a small pavilion outside Shinfei City. Hey, Walford, this is... A middle-aged man waiting outside the pavilion waved his hand to greet him, but when he saw the small cart behind him, he was stunned. This is the fertilizer you bought? It's fertilizer. I saw many people buying this thing and felt that it should be quite easy to use. Willis, you're more familiar with the Principality of Constantine. So tell me, is this fertilizer really that easy to use? The middle-aged man called Willis was around 7-8 years younger than Old Man Walford. Hearing his question, his ruddy face revealed a doubtful look as he shook his head. It's easy to use, but it's useless for you to buy this much. Could it be that the people of the Moon Shadow Chamber of Commerce didn't tell you that these 20 bags of fertilizer can only be used on 2 or 3 mu of land? That beautiful elven miss told me, but I just wanted to test it first. If it's easy to use, I'll buy more next time. There's no need to test it. I'm certain that this thing has to be easy to use. Willis waved his hand. The surrounding countries are all using this thing. Didn't you see many people buying from the Moon Shadow Chamber of Commerce? But there's a problem with just using the fertilizer. Old Man Walford was stunned. There's a problem? What problem? The fertilizer can increase the yield of wheat, but if it's not used with new Flyer's agricultural magic machines, the effects can't be fully displayed. Look, our year city can only harvest 100 pounds of wheat per mu of land. Even if we use the fertilizer, I estimate that it can only reach 200 pounds. But do you know how much wheat can be harvested per mu of land in the Principality of Constantine? How much? Willis reached out his hand. 500 pounds? Old Man Walford's eyes opened wide in shock. How is that possible? How can 1 mu of land harvest that much? Do you think that I've never farmed before? Of course I know that you've farmed before, but you've never farmed with agricultural magic machines. Willis had a look of disdain. Let me tell you, if you've seen this thing farming, you won't want to work yourself to death. It's that powerful. Old Man Walford doubtfully looked at Willis. After thinking about it, he said, then, should I buy some agricultural magic? Agricultural magic machines? Stop dreaming. Willis gave a sigh before shaking his head. I already had this idea, But it's a pity that when I went to the Frestec Chamber of Commerce to buy agricultural magic machines, the people of the Frestec Chamber of Commerce told me that our Kandra Empire hadn't approved their agricultural magic machines as imported goods, so I couldn't bring them back even if I bought them. Of Walford. Willis gave a shrug. How do I know what those old nobles are thinking? Old man Walford scratched his head and turned to look at the 20 bags of fertilizer. After hesitating a bit, he shook his head and said, "Forget it, I've already bought it, so I'll take it back to see how effective it is." After saying this, he took out a gold coin for the leopard beast man and had him take the 20 bags of fertilizer off the cart. Seeing the leopard beast man take the cart to the Moon Beauty Chamber of Commerce's warehouse in the distance, old man Walford couldn't help saying in an emotional voice, "This principality of Constantine really is strange. Not only do elves open companies here, even beastmen come here to work. If it wasn't for the fact that everyone else was already used to it, I wouldn't dare use it." "Hey, you're too inexperienced. If you stay here a bit longer, you'll see even more strange things." Willis patted old man Walford's shoulder. "All right, just wait here for a bit. The 2 transport magic cars I rented will be here soon. Put your fertilizer in my car, and we'll take it back." Old man Walford nodded before suddenly asking, "Right, Willis, you said that the new Flyers agricultural magic machines weren't approved by the Empire, so why are those magic fans, magic air conditioners? Oh, right, there's also the magic sedans. Aren't there quite a few in the Empire right now? I can see that these things are also made by the new Flyer, so why did the Empire allow them to be imported? If you're talking about the magic fans and magic air conditioners, it's because the first one to bring them to the Empire was Hakkinen. Do you know Hakkinen? The Emperor's little brother-in-law." Old man Walford curled his lips with a look of disdain. "Hey, don't look down on him. If it wasn't for him, do you believe that you wouldn't even be able to see the magic fans, magic air conditioners, and magic refrigerators? As for the magic sedans, I've heard people say that the boss behind the Bell Chamber of Commerce that sells magic sedans in the Empire is related to His Highness Frank." "Pooey." Old man Walford spat on the ground. "In the end, it's all related to the important people above. But speaking of this, why aren't the people related to the important people interested in these agricultural magic machines? Since these things are as easy to use as you say, they should be able to sell quite well in the Empire, right?" Willis spread his hands. "It's still the same thing. I don't know what those important people are thinking." Old man Walford helplessly shook his head. Looking at the 20 bags of fertilizer on the ground, he gave a sigh and didn't continue this topic. After around 20 minutes, the 2 large transport magic cars that Willis had hired came over, carrying the 20 generations of fertilizer that old man Walford had bought. Then the 2 of them got in the car and set off, heading east. 2 days later, the 2 large transport magic cars arrived at the end of a road to the east of the Kingdom of Ruhr with the 2 people and the 2 carts of goods. This place was around 100 kilometers away from the border between the Kingdom of Ruhr and the Kamla Empire. Compared to this, it was closer than entering the Kamla Empire through the Norton Road, but because there was no road, it was harder to travel. This was old man Walford's first time taking this road with Willis, so it was a bit strange. There's nothing strange about it. If we go through the Norton Duchy, not only the goods I brought, even the fertilizer you bought can be brought into the Empire. Even my 2 transport magic cars can't be brought into the Empire." Willis explained. "Oh, why? Didn't I tell you before? The nobles of the Empire won't allow it." After Willis said this, he looked around before gesturing to the driver beside him. The driver nodded to show he understood. With a twist of his hand, he drove the large transport magic car into the wasteland in front of the road. Seeing old man Walford jumping around with knitted brows from the bumps of the car, Willis laughed. "It'll be fine after a bit. After another 10 kilometers, we'll reach a grassland near the border. It'll be much flatter there." Old man Walford's face sunk. "Willis, if I'm not wrong, what you're doing now is called smuggling, right?" Willis gave a cold snort. "Of course it's smuggling. Those nobles only care about themselves and don't care about the benefits of us commoners. So why should we care about them? So what if it's smuggling? As long as we bring these good things back and sell them, no one will know that they were smuggled." Old man Walford shook his head. Although he didn't agree in his heart, he didn't say anything. Actually, he had traveled extensively when he was young and had seen all kinds of things, so he didn't have that much prejudice against smuggling. But this was his first time smuggling, so he felt it was a bit strange. The two large transport magic cars were running across the wasteland at around 40 kilometers an hour. It seemed like everything was going smoothly at first, but when they saw the greenery in front of them, which should be the grassland Willis mentioned, Willis suddenly looked back, and his expression changed. Damn, it's the Kingdom of Ruhr's border army. Quickly go. Old Man Walford turned to look and found that on the horizon behind them, there were 5 strange-looking magic cars that were quickly charging over. The Kingdom of Ruhr's border army? They actually aren't riding horses? Old Man Walford had a confused look. Other than the old army of our empire, who still rides horses these days, really, Willis muttered before patting the driver's shoulder and shouting, "Go faster! Those fellows are about to catch up." The driver stepped on the ground, and the large transport magic car the three of them were sitting in sped up, becoming even more bumpy. However, the speed of the large transport magic car was limited, so it was clear that it couldn't compare to the magic armored vehicles of the Kingdom of Ruhr's border army. The distance between the two sides was closing bit by bit. What if they catch up to us? Seeing that the Kingdom of Ruhr's border army was about to catch up, Old Man Walford couldn't help shouting in a worried voice. It's fine as long as we reach the grassland. With the border army of the Empire guarding it, the Kingdom of Ruhr's border army won't dare chase us. Quickly! Willis desperately roared out. The large transport magic car they were sitting in also used all its strength as it charged towards the grassland several hundred meters away. You even bribed the Empire's border army? Old Man Walford looked at the grassland in surprise and saw a small cavalry squad on the grassland. Based on the flag, they should be the soldiers of the Canla Empire. Seeing this flag, Old Man Walford let out a sigh of relief. Since Willis had bribed the Empire's border army, everything was fine. The Kingdom of Ruhr's border army wouldn't dare make a move against the Canla Empire's army no matter what, that was seeking death. But at this time, Old Man Walford suddenly heard a strange whistling sound from behind him. Turning around in shock, he found a fireball flying at high speed from behind him. Although the fireball was a bit off and hit the ground beside the large transport magic car, it created a large shockwave that shook the entire car. Damn, they actually dared to make a move against us. Quickly, 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 we're just a few hundred meters away. Willis loudly urged as the large transport magic car charged forward with all its might. The Canla Empire's border army on the grassland had clearly noticed the situation here. After hesitating a bit, they turned and ran over. While running, they raised their flag high up. It was clear that they wanted to use the name of the Canla Empire to scare off the Kingdom of Ruhr's border army. At this time, there was a fireball that suddenly flew through the sky. It instantly flew over the heads of the two large transport magic cars and flew over 100 meters before landing right in the middle of the Canla Empire's border army squad. With a strong explosion, several figures covered in flames flew out from the Canla Empire's border army squad. Willis stopped shouting and looked at the pitiful scene of the Canla Empire's border guards with a look of disbelief with Old Man Walford. These fellows from the Kingdom of Ruhr's border army, they actually made a move. Chapter 853. Sui didn't know what was happening at the border between the Kingdom of Ruhr and the Canla Empire, but after autumn, the Kingdom of Ruhr suddenly made a large order for military magic machines to New Flyer, which made him a little vigilant. Although the Kingdom of Ruhr had been buying large amounts of military magic machines from New Flyer and hoped that New Flyer would give the Kingdom of Ruhr an equal share of military magic machines like the Lampari Kingdom, the Kingdom of Ruhr still had a bottom line in this aspect. But this time, not only did the Kingdom of Ruhr directly increase their demand for military magic machines by grade, but they also required large amounts of high-end military magic machines like magic cannons and magic rocket launchers. And in order to ensure that New Flyer could win against them, the Kingdom of Ruhr privately sent a delegation to negotiate and even proposed 3 conditions that New Flyer couldn't refuse. The first condition was to completely open up the Kingdom of Ruhr's mineral market for New Flyer and not restrict new flyers' purchase of various minerals in the Kingdom of Ruhr. The second condition was to allow new flyer to directly invest in various mines in the Kingdom of Ruhr and achieve a limited degree of control, as well as allow new flyer to have a certain degree of autonomy in management. The third condition was to further reduce the Kingdom of Ruhr's tariffs on New Flyer's magic machine products and open a tariff-free trade zone in the Azhara tribe near the border between the Kingdom of Ruhr and the Principality of Constantine. The various magic machine products produced by New Flyer would be completely tariff-free there. It had to be said that these three conditions brought great benefits to New Flyer, so much so that Sui couldn't help but be tempted. But before agreeing to these conditions, Sui had to confirm something. The Kingdom of Ruhr's actions are simply militaristic. 70. Are you certain that they aren't planning on starting a war with your Lampari kingdom? Sui knit his brows as he asked 70, who was sitting in front of him, sipping a cup of iced juice. I'm not 100% certain. 70 put down the juice, and after thinking about it, she shook her head. But I don't think that the Kingdom of Ruhr's desire for military magic machines is because they want to start a war with us, because there are no benefits for them at all. Just last month, our two countries signed a number of agreements regarding agricultural cooperation and joint development of the magic industry in many ways. If they want to start a war with us, why would they waste all this effort? I also feel that the Kingdom of Ruhr has suddenly gone crazy, otherwise they wouldn't start a war with you. But for them to suddenly raise such shocking conditions, it really makes me feel a bit unsettled, Sui said in a thoughtful voice. 70. From your point of view, why do you think they are doing this? I don't believe that they would give such a large benefit to our company without a reason. 70 revealed a faint smile. Sui, you're only worried that the Kingdom of Ruhr will suddenly declare war on our Lampari kingdom. But have you ever thought that our Lampari kingdom will suddenly declare war on the Kingdom of Ruhr? Sui was stunned. How is that possible? Unless you're crazy. I'm not crazy, so of course it's impossible. But Sui, if you were King Tarek and knew that there was a country that was similar to yours, but had a military that was stronger than yours, wouldn't you feel unsettled? Sui's heart skipped a beat. You mean, the Kingdom of Ruhr is just trying to catch up to your Lampari kingdom in terms of military magic machines? It should be like this. 70 turned to the southeast and said with a smile, having a dangerous fellow by your side. Isn't it unsettling? Sui couldn't help shaking his head. I really don't understand what you kings are thinking. If you really have that much money, why don't you invest in improving the lives of your people? I'm clearly willing to cooperate with the Kingdom of Ruhr in terms of civilian magic machines, but King Tarek isn't willing to make a decision. Now, for some military magic machines, he's willing to pay such a large price. Actually, you know the reason, right? You're just not willing to admit it. 70 said with a faint smile. Even if you have good things in your hands, if you don't have enough strength to protect them, it's like a child with a bag of gold coins. It's very dangerous. Sui gave a sigh. All right, I understand this, but I don't want to admit it. Forget it. Let's not care about what King Tarek thinks. 70, what do you think? Is my opinion that important? 70 tilted her head as she looked at Sui, looking a bit naughty. It was probably only in front of Sui that she, as the queen of the Lampari kingdom, would reveal this side of a young girl. Of course it's important. Increasing the military strength of the Kingdom of Ruhr will definitely affect your Lampari kingdom. So I came to see you this time to hear your thoughts on this matter. Sui said with a serious look. My thoughts? It doesn't matter. 70 replied with a relaxed look. 70 said with a relaxed expression. Anyway, even if your company agrees to the Kingdom of Ruhr's request, the military magic machines they obtain won't be able to compare to our Lampari kingdom, right? Since it's like this, they won't be a threat to us. For our two countries, the best situation is for both sides to be around the same strength. If one side isn't too strong, it would be better for both sides to cooperate. Sui nodded, showing he understood. This was a kind of balance in the end. Whether it was the Lampari kingdom or the Kingdom of Ruhr, if one of the countries was too strong, it would create a series of discordant matters because of the imbalance in strength. But these two countries weren't large empires like the Malar Empire or the Kanla Empire, so they couldn't just consider the other side's threat. The Kingdom of Ruhr had a giant like the Kanla Empire by their side, so it was even more impossible for them to not have any scruples. Their main goal in buying large amounts of military magic machines from New Flyer was to protect themselves. But this request was too sudden and the conditions were too good, so Sui was a bit doubtful. But for New Flyer, the Kingdom of Ruhr's conditions couldn't be rejected. Now that Sui had heard from Seveni that the Lampari Kingdom was their biggest partner, there was no need to worry. So Sui decided to accept the Kingdom of Ruhr's conditions and sell them a new batch of military magic machines. Of course, while giving the Kingdom of Ruhr some benefits. Naturally, he couldn't treat the Lampari Kingdom badly. Sui took out a document for Seveni. I came to see you this time. Other than asking about your Lampari Kingdom's thoughts on this matter, I also want to tell you some good news. Sui said with a smile. What good news? Seveni took the document in surprise. You'll know after taking a look. Seveni looked over the document and immediately sat up in surprise. The magic airships are finally being mass-produced? Great! Seveni quickly looked over the document before slightly knitting her brows. We can only deliver 5 this year? Isn't that too little? Seeing Seveni's sad gaze, Sui raised his hands in surrender with a bitter smile. Don't look at me like this. I have no other choice. The production is only this high, and I have to make sure the guards are equipped first. To be able to spare 5 ships for you within this year is already not easy. Seveni looked at Sui with a sad look. Don't forget, when you agreed to give us 100 magic airships, I signed the contract with you without any hesitation. Now that several years have passed, you're only giving me 5. Sui could only keep giving a bitter smile. You have to understand, this is something that flies in the sky. If I can't guarantee that nothing will go wrong, how could I dare to give it to you? In order to study this thing, the people of the research facility haven't taken a long vacation in several years, so you have to understand their hard work. Seveni suddenly pursed her lips into a smile. The one who understands your Chief Evita's hard work shouldn't be me, but rather you as the Sir Chairman, right? Sui ignored her teasing and tapped on the document. If there's no problem, then sign it. Send some people to our company next month to receive basic training on the magic airships and the maintenance of the magic airships. Otherwise, even if I give these things to you, you won't know how to use them. Understood, my great chairman Sui. Seveni revealed a faint smile and signed her name at the bottom of the document without any hesitation. When she gave one to Sui, she suddenly said, Right, Sui, although I believe that the Kingdom of Ruhr won't be hostile to us, just in case, shouldn't we make some preparations? For example, you can sell us some high-end military magic machines. I've heard that your company has been developing a magic war chariot. Can you sell some to us? Impossible. Sui instantly rejected her. The magic war chariot is still being developed, so it's impossible to sell it. It'll take at least 3 years before it can be mass-produced. Then the magic rocket launcher and the mobile magic bazooka, that's also impossible. I'm not planning on selling these 2 for now. Seveni couldn't help looking at Sui. This means that you're planning on using 5 magic airships to get rid of me? Sui laughed before taking out another document for Seveni. Don't just focus on the military magic machines. Here, I don't believe that you're not interested in this. Seveni doubtfully looked over the document before her eyes lit up. Chapter 854. General Freese raised his head and let out a huge yawn. Last night, he hugged the 2 crazy women and tossed about in the tent for an entire night, causing him to not be able to sleep well. Now that it was almost noon, he still hadn't recovered his energy. Looking up at the scorching autumn sun, General Freese felt even more irritable. In this terrible weather, he couldn't stay at home and enjoy himself. Instead, he had to bring his subordinates to this godforsaken place hundreds of kilometers away. It really made him unhappy. However, this was a direct order from the military. Even if he was the commander of the 4th Frontier Regiment of the Kanla Empire's 3rd Border Defense Army, he couldn't resist. Damn the Kingdom of Ruhr. I really don't know what's wrong with them. They actually dared to make a move on my subordinates. I don't know where they got their guts from. General Fries muttered and lightly kicked the military horse he was sitting on. He slightly increased his speed and stepped onto the grassland that wasn't very wide at the border between the Kamla Empire and the Kingdom of Ruhr. A week ago, a small border defense team of the 4th Frontier Regiment of the 3rd Border Defense Army was attacked by the Kingdom of Ruhr's Border Defense Army here. The entire team of 15 soldiers only had 2 people escape. The other 13 were completely annihilated. After this incident spread, it immediately caused an earthquake in the empire. The emperor was extremely angry about this incident and directly rejected the proposal of the empire's upper house to demand an explanation from the Kingdom of Ruhr and provide adequate compensation. He ordered the military to immediately start retaliating against the Kingdom of Ruhr. This order received the full support of the military. Since the establishment of the Kamla Empire, although they had suffered many losses at the hands of the Malar Empire, but other than the Malar Empire, which small country on the continent dared to make any disrespectful moves against the great Kamla Empire? Not to mention, according to the confession of the Border Defense Army that escaped, this time it was the Kingdom of Ruhr's soldiers who made the first move. This was simply a naked provocation. It could even be said that this was a direct challenge to the great Kamla Empire. With the forceful push of the furious emperor, the Kandra Empire's army headquarters only took 3 days to complete their revenge attack on the Rudsun Kingdom. A week after that incident, General Fries led the Empire's 3rd Border Army's 4th Border Regiment, a total of 3,000 soldiers. They crossed the border between the Kamla Empire and the Kingdom of Ruhr and brazenly stepped into the territory of the Kingdom of Ruhr. This time, General Fries' mission was simple. He was to directly attack the Kingdom of Ruhr's 3rd Legion stationed at the border. He had to inflict as much damage as possible to retaliate against the Kingdom of Ruhr's border guards. Although, according to the reports, the Rudsun Kingdom's 3rd Regiment had a total of over 6,000 people on this border. Because they were responsible for guarding such a long border, it was impossible for them to gather in one place, so their strength was scattered. Even if they were to gather together, General Fries had full confidence that he could easily defeat the enemy. In the end, the enemy was only a small army of the Kingdom of Ruhr. Whether or not they had the ability to fully equip 6,000 soldiers with weapons and armor was a big problem. How could they contend against the Kamla Empire's 3rd Border Defense Army? How far is it? General Fries asked his deputy beside him. The deputy raised his head and looked at the map in his hand. He replied with uncertainty. It should be about 20 kilometers northwest. We will reach one of the bases of the Kingdom of Ruhr's 3rd Legion. 20 kilometers? General Fries let out a mocking laugh. As expected of a pitifully small country, 20 kilometers is already very far for them, right? Huh. The deputy laughed along. He was also feeling very relaxed. A small country like the Kingdom of Ruhr dared to provoke the Kamla Empire. What awaited them was only obediently accepting the punishment. If they dared to continue resisting, it would be even better. This would give the Empire a good excuse to start a war against the Kingdom of Ruhr. As long as the Malar Empire didn't take advantage of this opportunity to cause trouble, the Empire might just swallow this small country and add a small piece of territory to the Empire. Of course, this was only an ideal situation. In reality, the plan of the military was to use this opportunity to teach the Kingdom of Ruhr a lesson and make them obediently give the Empire a satisfactory compensation. Even if they couldn't swallow them, making them a complete vassal of the Empire and contributing everything to the Empire was also a good choice. General Fries led the 4th Border Defense Regiment of the Empire's 3rd Border Defense Army. To put it bluntly, he was only the vanguard of this operation. Of course, Fries didn't think that he was only the vanguard. Due to the fact that the two empires were on par with each other in terms of strength, the military hadn't made any major moves in the past 20 years. Now that he finally had such an opportunity, if he could perform well and achieve military merits, he might be promoted because of it. Thinking of this, Fries suddenly became excited. He forced himself to focus and loudly urged his subordinates to move faster. Seeing that they had already crossed half of the grassland, The scouts that were sent out to scout suddenly rushed back. "General, there are troops of the kingdom of Ruhr ahead." Two scouts reported to Fries while panting. Fries looked at the panting and nervous scouts and scolded jokingly. "So what if they found them? Why are you so nervous? Brothers, get ready to meet the enemy at any time." The two scouts looked at each other. One of them hesitated and continued. "General, the troops of the kingdom of Ruhr are a little strange. Strange?" Fries looked at him in surprise and waved his hand. "What could be strange? All right, cut the crap. Go scout ahead and report back to me at any time. I'll choose a good place to start the battle with them later. All right, I forgot to ask, how many people are there?" The two scouts had strange expressions on their faces and shook their heads. I'm not too sure. Not too sure." Fries looked at the two in surprise. "Are the two of you out of your minds? I asked you to scout the enemy, and you don't even know how many people they have? What's the point of keeping you then?" The two scouts looked at each other again and smiled bitterly. "General, we didn't see anyone at all. We only saw strange carriages." "Strange carriages?" Fries was stunned again. Just as he was about to ask again, his deputy suddenly pointed to the horizon and shouted, "Look, it's the enemy." Fries looked up in surprise and saw that on the grassland in the distance, there were dozens of black shadows that were speeding towards them at an unimaginable speed. "It can't be. What kind of horse is so fast? No, it doesn't seem like a horse. A horse isn't that big." Fries was in a daze as he watched the dozens of black shadows approaching. When they came closer, he found that these black shadows weren't large horses. Rather, they were dozens of strange black monsters that seemed to be made of steel. If one took a closer look, one could see that there seemed to be 4 thick tires supporting the dozens of steel monsters as they ran. This made Fries instantly react. These strange things seemed to be similar to the magic sedans that were popular among the nobles of the empire, but they looked completely different. Just what was this thing? However, Fries didn't have time to slowly think about it. Those dozens of black shadows were very fast, and they were less than 2,000 meters away from Fries's subordinates. Seeing the commotion caused by the appearance of these strange things, Fries raised his voice and shouted, "All of you, quiet down. Everyone pay attention. Prepare to meet the enemy." Perhaps it was because the Kanla Empire's army hadn't participated in a battle in a long time. Fries's subordinates panicked for a while before they got into formation. Fries didn't have time to make any adjustments. With an order, countless arrows flew out in a chaotic manner. However, when the rain of arrows fell down and hit those strange-looking magic cars, they didn't cause any damage at all. There were many arrows that hit the surface and broke in half. Fries was stunned. When he was about to give the order to attack again, those strange-looking magic cars suddenly stopped. The magic car in front opened a door, and 2 heads popped out. "We are the Kingdom of Ruhr's 3rd Army's Border Brigade. We are here to give you a warning. You have entered the territory of our Kingdom of Ruhr without permission. Please leave this place immediately." "Hey, all this nonsense." Fries curled his lips and gestured to his deputy. The deputy immediately understood and turned to give another order to his subordinates. After that, countless burning fire arrows flew out and fell down on the other side. Fries saw that normal arrows couldn't cause any damage to the other side, so he changed to fire arrows to attack. In the magic armored vehicle, several hundred meters away, the Kingdom of Ruhr's 3rd Army's Vice Commander Vicaro looked at the flames in the sky and took a deep breath. He quickly went back into the car and tightly closed the lid. He took out the magic communicator beside him and said in a deep voice, "Pass down the order. Everyone retreat to a safe distance and prepare to counterattack." Fries was surprised that the fire arrows didn't display any power, but he suddenly saw the magic armored vehicles retreat. After being stunned, he quickly shouted, "Those fellows actually want to escape. Chase them for me." However, the magic armor vehicles were much faster than them, moving 2 kilometers away in the blink of an eye. While Forex was worried, the several dozen magic armored vehicles stopped and pointed their heads in this direction again. "Damn, are they playing with me?" Fries flew into a rage. When he was about to give the order to attack again, he suddenly heard the sound of countless arrows tearing through the air. At the same time, there were several hundred dots of light that appeared on the magic armored vehicles, flying in their direction. Free's heart was filled with a strong sense of danger as he shouted, "Pay attention to your defenses." Without another word, he rolled off his horse. Hong! Hong, 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 hong. Countless violent explosions rang out beside his ears, and the huge shockwave caused Freese, who was lying on the ground, to roll a few times to the side. When he was filled with panic, he suddenly felt several arrows falling from the sky, deeply stabbing into his body. Freese only had time to give a roar before his eyes popped out and his legs collapsed, but he couldn't be more dead. Chapter 855. If it was said that the conflict between the Rudsun Kingdom and the Kandra Empire on the border was too small, so no one knew about it. But this time, because both sides had sent over 1,000 soldiers, it was impossible to hide it no matter what. However, when a matter was exposed, it shocked everyone. According to the results announced by the Kingdom of Ruhr, this time, the Kanla Empire's 3rd Border Army's 4th Border Regiment trespassed into the Kingdom of Ruhr's territory without permission. They were repeatedly warned by the Kingdom of Ruhr's Border Regiment, and even took the initiative to attack the Kingdom of Ruhr's Border Regiment. Then, the Kingdom of Ruhr's Border Regiment was forced to retaliate, and both sides engaged in a fierce battle. In the end, the Kingdom of Ruhr's Border Regiment completely annihilated the Kanla Empire's 3rd Border Regiment. The Kanla Empire also made a corresponding announcement. The general description was the same as the one announced by the Kingdom of Ruhr. They also admitted that it was the Kanla Empire's 3rd Border Regiment that took the initiative to cross the border and enter the Kingdom of Ruhr. However, the Kanla Empire claimed that the Kanla Empire's 3rd Border Regiment's 4th Border Regiment did this because a merchant from the Kanla Empire was intercepted and harmed by the Kingdom of Ruhr's Border Regiment for no reason. Therefore, the Empire's Border Regiment was sent into the Kingdom of Ruhr to investigate. However, they didn't expect to be ambushed by the despicable Kingdom of Ruhr's Border Regiment and suffered heavy losses. In short, the Kandra Empire's side admitted that this battle had occurred, but they treated the Rudsun Kingdom as the one who had taken the initiative to ambush them. Their side's actions were all justified. As for the casualties, the Kingdom of Ruhr claimed that they annihilated the Kanla Empire's 3rd Border Regiment, while the Kanla Empire only admitted that they suffered heavy losses. However, they didn't disclose the exact number of casualties. However, regardless of the details, the public statements of both sides strongly confirmed this matter. Just this fact alone was enough to shock the entire continent. Someone actually dared to attack the Kanla Empire's army on this continent. Other than the Malar Empire, the only other empire that could stand on equal footing with the Kanla Empire. Who else dared to do such a thing? This was simply courting death. There were even many people who secretly made inferences based on the lives of the Kingdom of Ruhr and the Kanla Empire. In the end, they came to a shocking conclusion. All of this was a premeditated plan of the Kanla Empire. The Kanla Empire's true goal was to swallow the kingdom's territory. And this matter was simply an excuse for the Kanla Empire to invade the Kingdom of Ruhr. If this was the case, then the specifics of this matter weren't important. What really mattered was that after so many years of silence, the Kanla Empire had once again opened its bloody mouth to the other small countries on the continent. Ever since the last war between the Kanla Empire and the Malar Empire, the signs that had been peaceful for more than 20 years might once again fall into turmoil. And the Kingdom of Ruhr was about to become the first victim of this turmoil. Why are these people so sure that the Kanla Empire will swallow the Kingdom of Ruhr? He threw down the 2 newspapers in his hands and chuckled. Have they not considered that not only will the Kanla Empire fail to swallow the Kingdom of Ruhr, they might even break their own teeth? The other people in the meeting room looked at each other. After a pause, Heinz laughed dryly. You're thinking too much. The difference in strength between the Kanla Empire and the Kingdom of Ruhr is like heaven and earth. Now that the Kanla Empire is determined to swallow the Kingdom of Ruhr, I feel that the fate of the Kingdom of Ruhr has already been decided. There is no other possibility. So you all think that the Kingdom of Roar is doomed this time? So he looked around and asked, including CEO Kennard, the other new flyer executives in the meeting room, including the Academy of Magic's Dean Avita, all nodded lightly. In other words, you all agree with Kennard's suggestion to completely cut off all ties with the Kingdom of Roar, especially cutting off the supply of military magic machines to the Kingdom of Roar? So he asked again. This time, no one nodded in agreement so straightforwardly, because from Su Yi's expression, he didn't seem to agree with Kennard's suggestion. After a moment of silence in the meeting room, Hines coughed lightly and decided to take the lead. In the entire new flyer, only he could use his status as Su Yi's first partner and the second largest shareholder of the Chamber of Commerce to question Su Yi's decisions. No one else had the confidence to do so. Kennard is also considering the future of the Chamber of Commerce. Think about it. Now that the Kanla Empire is clearly declaring war on the Kingdom of Roar, if we continue to provide support to the Kingdom of Roar, especially military magic machines, wouldn't we be pushing ourselves to the enemy of the Kanla Empire? That would be completely offending the Kanla Empire. Yes, that's right, and then? Su Yi said. Then? Hines frowned slightly. Su Yi, you don't need me to remind you of the consequences, right? Not to mention that if we completely offend the Kanla Empire, our Chamber of Commerce definitely won't be able to enter the Kanla Empire. If the Kanla Empire really sees us as an enemy, then the consequences would be severe. Don't tell me you haven't thought of it? Su Yi shrugged. I don't think it's that serious. You've been talking for so long, but it's all based on the premise that the Kingdom of Roar will lose this war with the Kanla Empire. Everyone in the meeting room thought that this was nonsense, but Su Yi clearly disagreed, so they could only continue to remain silent. If we look at it from a business perspective, if the Kingdom of Roar loses, then our investment in the Kingdom of Roar will go down the drain. We will also offend a potential major customer and even bring about severe consequences for ourselves. The losses can be said to be abnormally terrifying. But I still have the same question. Why are you so certain that the Kingdom of Roar will lose? Kennard, who had been silent this whole time, finally couldn't help but speak. Sir Chairman, do you really think that the Kingdom of Roar will win? Why can't I think so? Su Yi smiled and asked back. I have a detailed report on the battle between the two countries. According to this report, in that battle, the Kanla Empire's 3rd Border Army's 4th Frontier Regiment was almost completely wiped out. Only less than 100 cavalrymen managed to escape. As for the Kingdom of Roar, can you guess their losses? Everyone looked at each other. The manager of the Household Magic Machine Department, Enkato, hesitated and said, Sir Chairman, from what you've said, it should be much less than the Kanla Empire's losses. Since the Kanla Empire's 3rd Border Army's 4th Frontier Regiment had a total of 3,000 people, then I guess the Kingdom of Roar lost less than 1,000 people? No, that's too much. Everyone was stunned. It can't be. Only a few hundred? Su Yi smiled and raised his right hand. His thumb and index finger were connected together, making a 0 gesture. Of course, no one on this continent could understand this gesture. Seeing that everyone was at a loss, Su Yi reacted and hurriedly explained, according to the report, the Kingdom of Roar's losses in this battle were 0. In other words, there were no casualties at all. How is this possible? This is impossible. This is ridiculous. How can it be 0? That's right. It's impossible that no one was injured. This is too fake. There was an uproar in the meeting room. Su Yi smiled and looked at everyone's discussion. After a while, Kennard frowned and muttered, All right, Sir Chairman, even if the Kingdom of Roar's losses in this battle were really 0, I still insist on my opinion. In a war between two countries, the outcome is not decided by a single battle, but by the strength of the two countries. In this aspect, the difference between the Kingdom of Roar and the Kanla Empire is countless times, so I don't think that the Kingdom of Roar has any hope of winning in the end. Hearing Kennard's words, the others all revealed looks of sadness. The Kanla Empire and the Malar Empire had existed on the continent for close to 1,000 years. They had already formed a strong and unparalleled image in the minds of everyone on the continent. This was something that most of the new Flyer high-level members who came from the Lampari Kingdom had a deep impression of. The Lampari Kingdom couldn't even compare to a small country like the Sac Kingdom. Even if the Kingdom of Ruhr was a bit stronger than the Lampari Kingdom, it was at most around the same level as the Sac Kingdom. How could it compare to the Kanla Empire? Even if the Kingdom of Ruhr could win 1 or 2 battles, the difference in national strength between the two countries was too large. The Kingdom of Ruhr could only lose in the end. This was something that everyone on the continent agreed on. The only one who objected to this was Sir Chairman, who had a different way of thinking. Seeing the worried looks on everyone's faces, Su-Yi gave a sigh in his heart. It was impossible to convince them with words. Although he could use his authority as the chairman to suppress them, it would easily affect the unity of the company, so it wasn't worth it. All right, since you don't trust the Kingdom of Ruhr this much, we'll put this discussion aside for now, Su-Yi said with a smile. But believe me, it won't be long before you regret what you've said today. Chapter 856. King Tarek looked at the letter in his hand. At first, his face was slightly gloomy, but as he read the letter, a smile slowly appeared on his face. When he finished reading the letter, he folded it. His face had regained its usual calmness, and his eyes were filled with confidence. Did Chairman Su say anything else to you? King Tarek asked Newman, who was standing in front of him. Newman immediately bowed and replied, "Before leaving the Principality of Constantine, Chairman Su looked for me in private and asked me to pass on a message to your Majesty." Speak. Chairman Su said that although it seems like the Kingdom of Ruhr is in danger, it is actually a very good opportunity. Similarly, this is also an opportunity for the new Flyer. That's all. Yes, that's all. King Tarek fell silent. After thinking for a while, he looked at the letter in his hand. After thinking for a while, he seemed to have thought of something and smiled. Very good. It seems like Chairman Su's ambition is much greater than I thought. Very good. Newman looked up at King Tarek in surprise. He thought that perhaps it was because Su-Yi and His Majesty were both very ambitious people that they reached a consensus on this matter. After the conflict with the Kamla Empire broke out, the entire Kingdom of Ruhr was in a state of panic. Everyone was afraid that the Kamla Empire would retaliate against the Kingdom of Ruhr, or even destroy the entire Kingdom of Ruhr. Under such circumstances, what King Tarek did for the first time was not to think about how to salvage the impact of this matter or to seek forgiveness from the Kamla Empire. Instead, he actively mobilized the Kingdom of Ruhr, as if he was preparing for an official war with the Kamla Empire. Because of King Tarek's actions, many nobles in the Kingdom of Ruhr became even more anxious. Countless nobles and ministers expressed to King Tarek through various channels that they hoped to reach an agreement with the Kamla Empire. They didn't want to start a war with the Kamla Empire. However, King Tarek didn't care about this at all and continued to prepare for war. If this happened in any other small country, perhaps the entire country would have fallen into complete chaos. However, in the Kingdom of Ruhr, King Tarek represented the royal family and had absolute control over the entire Kingdom of Ruhr. The other nobles couldn't affect the general situation of the Kingdom of Ruhr at all. Now that King Tarek was determined, the other nobles in the Kingdom of Ruhr couldn't do anything. Some nobles even secretly moved their entire family out of the Kingdom of Ruhr to avoid disaster. King Tarek was well aware of what was happening in the Kingdom of Ruhr, but he acted as if he didn't see it and didn't care about it at all. Instead, he focused most of his attention on preparing for war and a small part of it on the new Flyer. In the beginning, when the border guards of the Kingdom of Ruhr clashed with the border guards of the Kamla Empire because of smugglers, King Tarek immediately proposed a series of favorable conditions to the new Flyer in order to obtain the new Flyer's support in the military magic machines. Now that the conflict between the two sides had broken out, King Tarek immediately sent Newman, who was the most familiar with the new Flyer, to the Principality of Constantine to represent him in a meeting with the new Flyer. It should be said that the meeting with the new Flyer didn't go well. Even though the new Flyer received Newman as usual, Newman could clearly feel that the upper echelons of the new Flyer were somewhat perfunctory. Whenever he talked about the cooperation between the two sides, whether it was CEO Kennard or the other upper echelons of the Chamber of Commerce. They would often change the topic and refuse to talk about it in depth. When Newman wanted to discuss the purchase of military magic machines in large quantities, Kennard and the other upper echelons of the New Flyer displayed an even colder attitude. After staying in the Principality of Constantine for an entire week, Newman completely understood the attitude of the New Flyer. It was clear that the New Flyer had misgivings about the possibility of the Kingdom of Ruhr going to war with the Kanla Empire and wasn't willing to interfere. They were even more unwilling to support the Kingdom of Ruhr and offend the Kanla Empire. This result wasn't too unexpected for Newman. Before he came to the Principality of Constantine, the internal discussions of the Kingdom of Ruhr had already inferred this result. In the end, compared to the colossal Kanla Empire, the Kingdom of Ruhr was simply too insignificant. Even if Newman was in the same position as the New Flyer, he would have the same attitude as the New Flyer. However, just as Newman was about to leave the Principality of Constantine in disappointment, the president of the New Flyer, Su Yi, suddenly appeared in front of Newman. Su Yi didn't say much to Newman in private. He only gave him a letter addressed to King Tarek and asked him to pass on a message to King Tarek. However, just because of this letter and a sentence, King Tarek, who was previously gloomy because of the attitude of the New Flyer, immediately regained his powerful confidence. This made Newman feel very strange. His Majesty's attitude suddenly changed. It was clear that Su Yi expressed his support for the Kingdom of Ruhr in the letter. But since Su Yi supported the Kingdom of Ruhr, why did the higher-ups of the New Flyer show an attitude of rejection when they saw Su Yi? Could it be that the higher-ups of the New Flyer didn't have the same thoughts as the president, Su Yi? But if that was the case, didn't it mean that Su Yi's control over the New Flyer was seriously problematic, to the point that the higher-ups of the Chamber of Commerce were openly opposing Su Yi? But this made the problem even more serious, because even if Su Yi promised the king something in the letter, the New Flyer might not really fulfill it. Then what was the meaning of Su Yi's words in the letter? However, King Tarek didn't seem to have thought of these problems at all. After reading the letter and hearing Su Yi's words, he became energetic and full of confidence. This was too amazing. The only explanation was that the letter that Su Yi asked Newman to bring back mentioned something that Newman didn't understand. This allowed the king to regain his confidence in the New Flyer. Newman, King Tarek suddenly shouted, interrupting Newman's thoughts. Your Majesty, do you have any orders? In a few days, there may be a delegation of the Lampari Kingdom's Chamber of Commerce coming over. You will be in charge of receiving them. Be sure to receive them well. Understand? Newman was startled again. Why did the king suddenly talk about a delegation of the Lampari Kingdom's Chamber of Commerce? And why hadn't he heard of this before? Newman's eyes fell on the letter in King Tarek's hand. His heart moved. Could it be that this was also the matter Su Yi mentioned in the letter? But what did this have to do with the support that the king needed from the New Flyer? #, the brilliant autumn sun shone on the endless sea. Although it wasn't as hot as it was in midsummer, it still made the entire surface of the sea shine with a dazzling light, making it almost impossible for people to look at it directly. Russell stood on the front deck of a frigate in the middle of the fleet. He narrowed his eyes and looked at the distant horizon. According to the report from the captain of the frigate beside him, they had already crossed the border between the Kanla Empire and the Kingdom of Ruhr. They had officially entered the waters of the Kingdom of Ruhr. In fact, the concept of the so-called sea region didn't exist in Russell's mind. What sea region? Any place that the Empire's navy could reach was the Empire's territory. But ever since the New Flyer's fleet appeared, this concept gradually began to spread through the New Flyer's fleet and the New Flyer's transport fleet. According to the concept of a sea region proposed by the New Flyer's fleet, the sea region that extended 20 kilometers from the coastline of each country was the official sea region of each country. It was equivalent to their territory. Entering the sea region of another country was equivalent to invading their territory. So according to this concept, the Kanla Empire's Third Fleet, led by Russell, had invaded the Kingdom of Ruhr's exclusive sea region. It was equivalent to invading the Kingdom of Ruhr's territory. But so what? This time, Russell led the only 3 frigates of the Empire's navy and 50 Thunder-class warships in the Third Fleet. Their original purpose was to invade the Kingdom of Ruhr. According to the strategy formulated by the Empire's military, the fleet led by Russell would disembark in the south of the Kingdom of Ruhr and launch an attack all the way north. Finally, they would meet with the Empire's army in the capital of the Kingdom of Ruhr, Caracas City. Then, they would sweep the audacious Kingdom of Ruhr into the dust of history. No one in the Empire had any doubts about this plan because, in everyone's opinion, a small country like the Kingdom of Ruhr had no ability to contend with the Empire. The only choice they could make to minimize their losses was to surrender and become a vassal of the Empire. However, ever since the conflict between the two countries broke out, this damn small country had never shown any signs of backing down. Even their king had been actively preparing for war. This greatly affected the self-esteem of the generals in the Empire's military. This unremarkable little country actually dared to resist. It just so happened that the Empire's army hadn't experienced a real battle for almost 20 years. So this time, the Empire's military simply treated this as a training opportunity. Not only did they send out as many as 5 legions, more than 50,000 elites, but they also sent out the Empire's navy to coordinate with them. Of course, the purpose was to destroy this arrogant small country with a thunderous force and once again establish the supreme prestige of the Empire on this continent. However, when Russell's gaze fell on the distance, there was a trace of uneasiness in his heart. Would the military's plan really succeed so smoothly this time? At this moment, he saw a dozen or so high-speed steel ships suddenly appear on the distant sea surface. Chapter 857. Russell didn't need strong eyesight to see that the other party was the new Flyers Guard fleet. There was no other reason. On the vast, endless sea, other than the 3 guard ships owned by the Canla Empire, only the new Flyer had these steel monsters. Russell frowned when he saw the dozen or so guard ships quickly approaching. The sudden appearance of the new Flyers Guard fleet gave him a bad feeling. Not long after, the dozen or so guard ships were not far ahead and began to slow down. "Sir Russell, what do these guys want to do?" Tom, the captain of the Canla Empire's 3rd Fleet, who was in charge of this operation, frowned and asked. "I don't know. Let's stop and take a look first." Russell shook his head. "Stop." Tom was taken aback. "Sir Russell, we're in the middle of a mission. How can we just stop? If these guys don't get out of the way, we'll just kill them." Russell glanced at him and said, "Are you confident you can kill them?" Tom's expression froze, and he was speechless. Before, the Canla Empire's navy was not familiar with the new Flyers Guard ships. But in the eyes of the Canla Empire's navy, who always thought they were the best in the world, there was no one in the world that could stop the advance of the Empire's navy on the endless sea. However, after a head-on clash with the new Flyers Guard fleet, they realized that there was a fleet that exceeded their imagination in this world. The more important thing was that after the Kandra Empire's navy ordered the 3 guard ships from the Frestac Chamber of Commerce, in the Navy's internal drills, these 3 guard ships had displayed battle strength that far surpassed the other ships of the Navy, so there was a consensus in the Navy. The guard ships manufactured by the Shinfei Chamber of Commerce were completely different from traditional ships. Comparing the two was like comparing a fully armed adult to a child. It could be said that there was almost no comparison. In the internal drill, just by relying on these 3 frigates, they were able to easily defeat a huge fleet of dozens of traditional ships, and they were even able to win without giving the other party a chance to retaliate. And now, there were more than a dozen corvettes in front of them, piloted by the new Flyer Guards. How could Tom have the confidence to kill them? "All right, let's stop for now. I don't think they'll really dare to attack us. Maybe it's just a coincidence." Although Russell said so, he didn't think so in his heart. Although the endless sea was vast, the new Flyers fleet had suddenly appeared when the Canla Empire's navy had just entered the waters of the Kingdom of Ruhr. It was too much of coincidence. After a while, the 2 fleets stopped about 2 kilometers apart. Then, the magic communication device on Russell's frigate rang. "Is that the navy of the Canla Empire? I'm the former commander of the new Flyers fleet, Leslie. Is there anyone I know on your fleet? Russell and Tom looked at each other before Russell gave a soft cough and replied, Sir Leslie, hello, I am Russell. Oh, Sir Russell is also here? That's great. Leslie's voice was filled with a trace of pleasant surprise. Sir Russell, it's not convenient to talk like this. Can we meet face to face? Russell slightly knit his brows. We're currently on a mission, so it's not convenient for us to meet you. Leslie gave a soft laugh. Sir Russell, what I want to talk to you about is related to your current mission. Russell deeply knit his brows and Tom quickly said, Sir Leslie, I'm sorry, but we're currently on an urgent mission. I ask you to lead your subordinates out of the way and not waste our time. What if I don't? Tom's brows jumped up as he shouted, Sir Leslie, what do you mean by this? Do you know that deliberately blocking us is equal to declaring war on us? Do you know the consequences of doing this? I know. That's why I'm here. Leslie's tone was as relaxed as before. Tom was filled with rage and wanted to say something, but he was stopped by Russell. Sir Leslie, what do you mean by this? Russell asked in a deep voice. I just said it. I just didn't want you to go over. Hearing Leslie's relaxed tone, Russell's heart was filled with a bit of anger. His face became even darker as he asked, Leslie, do you really know what you're doing? You're blocking the actions of our Empire's Navy, so I can consider it as you declaring war on our Empire's Navy, declaring war on the Empire. I'll give you one more chance. Please move aside immediately. Based on our friendship, I can treat this matter as if it never happened. Leslie's hearty laughter came from the communication device, but there was no other response. Sir Russell, let's not care about him and just charge over. I don't believe he dares to make a move against us. Tom on the side urged, if we keep delaying, we'll waste too much time and it might affect the entire plan. Russell knit his brows to think for a bit before slowly nodding. Let's go. Let's not care about them. Tom gave an unsound before giving the order. After a while, the Kamla Empire's fleet began moving again. However, the three guard ships in front had only moved 10 meters when they suddenly saw a red light appear on the ship in front of them. Seeing this red light, Russell and Tom's hearts tightened. If they weren't wrong, this was clearly the light from the magic cannons of the guard ships. Dodge! As soon as Tom shouted, he saw a red light shoot out from the opposite side. In an instant, it broke through the distance of nearly 2 kilometers between the two ships. However, this red light didn't go straight for the frigate under their feet. Instead, after drawing a small arc in the air, it went straight into the sea ahead. With a giant sound, a giant pillar of water soared into the sky. There were large waves on the calm sea, causing the ships of the Kamla Empire's fleet that were less than 100 meters away from the explosion to sway. Tom and Russell were in a daze as they watched the wave of water fall from the sky. It was like a giant stone falling into the sea, creating large waves once again. He's crazy. Tom couldn't help cursing. Russell took a deep breath and pressed the call button on the magic communication device without any hesitation. When the green light for the call lit up, Russell angrily shouted, Leslie, are you crazy? You actually dare to move against us? Are you declaring war on our Kamla Empire? Leslie's slightly lazy voice came from the communication device. Declaration of war? No. Sir Russell, you're mistaken. I don't have any intentions of declaring war. I'm just doing my duty and can't let you pass like this. Duty? Luo Su was startled. Russell was stunned. How is this related to your duty? Of course it is. I signed a sea defense agreement with the Kingdom of Ruhr 3 months ago. The Kingdom of Ruhr entrusted me and my fleet to provide sea defense services for the Kingdom of Ruhr, ensuring that the Kingdom of Ruhr seas will not be invaded by foreign forces. So, Sir Russell, you wouldn't be telling me that you brought the Kamla Empire's navy here just to travel, right? Sea defense agreement. This was the first time Russell had heard of this term, but that didn't stop him from understanding the meaning behind Leslie's words. That means that you're now the Kingdom of Ruhr's navy? No, that doesn't count. We're only in an employment relationship. The Kingdom of Ruhr doesn't have the power to control me. Leslie replied, That's not important. Russell angrily waved his hand and sternly shouted, I only want to ask you, Leslie, are you doing this because of Chairman Su's orders? Is your new flyer planning on fully supporting the Kingdom of Ruhr and going against the Kamla Empire? Oh, I forgot to tell you. Actually, Sir Russell, half a year ago, I already left the new flyer. The 10 frigates under my command were all bought from the new flyer. They are my personal property. My subordinates, and I have no relationship with the new flyer, don't misunderstand. Both Russell and Tom were dumbfounded. Leslie had always been the commander of the new flyer's guard fleet. They had discussed the matter of buying the frigates with the new flyer, as well as the new flyer's guard fleet patrolling the southern seas of the Kamla Empire, as well as entering the Kamla Empire's naval port to resupply. The two sides had met many times, so they were familiar with each other. But this was the first time they had heard that Leslie had already left the new flyer. That's right. There's something else I need to say. I've already established a company that specializes in sea transportation and security. It's called the Leslie Chamber of Commerce. This time, the Kingdom of Ruhr directly signed a sea defense agreement with our Leslie Chamber of Commerce. The price isn't expensive. They only need to pay 800,000 gold coins a year to our company. Sir Russell, don't you think this price is very fair? If your Kamla Empire has any needs, you can contact me at any time. Since we're so familiar with each other, I could give you a 10% discount. Other than this, there are also other benefits. Russell didn't have any interest in listening to Leslie talk about these meaningless things. He looked up at the line of guard ships blocking the way, and after thinking for a bit, he said to Tom, "Let's retreat first. We'll make a decision after reporting the situation to the Army headquarters." Tom said in a stunned voice, "Sir Russell, if we retreat like this, we'll be breaking the Army headquarters plan. The Army headquarters will definitely punish us. If we don't retreat, are we really going to fight them?" Tom turned to look at the guard ships and swallowed a mouthful of saliva before shaking his head with a bitter smile. Although the other side only had a dozen ships, and they had over 100 ships, he didn't have any confidence in winning. But if they didn't even dare fight and directly retreated, what was the difference between that and running away without fighting? Russell easily guessed Tom's thoughts from his expression. He patted his shoulder and said with a sigh, "All right, don't be unwilling. This kind of hopeless battle has no meaning at all. I'll write a detailed report to the Army headquarters when we go back. You don't need to worry." Tom finally let out a sigh of relief. With Sir Russell, the Vice Chief of Staff of the Navy, in front of him, he didn't need to worry about being accused of running away without fighting. However, when he turned to look at the guard ships in the distance, his heart was still filled with unwillingness. "Sir Russell, could it be that our respected Empire's Navy can only retreat when we see them in the future?" Russell was silent, not knowing what to say. If it was possible, of course he wanted to tell Tom that as long as the Empire's Navy was equipped with the most advanced guard ships, he could easily defeat these guard ships. But the reality was that the Empire's Navy was already hard-pressed to obtain the 3 guard ships they had. If they wanted to equip more powerful guard ships, it was almost impossible. Tom was well aware of the Empire's Navy's predicament. Seeing Russell being silent, he immediately understood. The two of them looked at each other and let out a sigh at the same time. After being silent for a bit, Tom gave the order to turn around and retreat. The fleet of over 100 ships of the Kandra Empire went back the way they came and went back in a dejected manner. Chapter 858. Do you really think that by letting Leslie do this, the Kamla Empire will think it has nothing to do with your new flyer? No, of course I don't think so, unless the Kamla Empire is a fool. Then what is the meaning in doing this? I'm just giving the Kamla Empire an excuse. If our new flyer supports the Kingdom of Ruhr, how can the Kamla Empire lower their face to cooperate with our company? You seem to be very confident in the Kingdom of Ruhr. I'm just confident in our new flyer's products. Even if the opponent is a giant like the Kamla Empire, yes, then I wish you. All right, I wish the Kingdom of Ruhr good luck. Anyway, our Lampari Kingdom doesn't want to have an unfriendly neighbor like the Kamla Empire by our side. Our Principality of Constantine is the same. So you insist on supporting the Kingdom of Ruhr. That is only a part of the reason. The main reason is to use this war to advertise for our Chamber of Commerce. You really are a madman. Many thanks for the praise. Many people say this. But I'm very happy talking to a madman like you. Especially now that we're 2,000 kilometers apart. It makes me even happier. Is that so? Then I welcome you to talk to me when you have nothing to do. All right, I'll talk to you in the middle of the night in the future, and I'll pick when Steel is by your side. Hearing 70's playful laughter that came from the magic communicator, he helplessly rolled his eyes. This should have been an epic-making event, the first real long-distance communication in signs, but it had turned into this kind of gossipy conversation which made him a bit speechless. 2 months ago, the magic communication network in the Principality of Constantine had been completed. At the same time, the communication line between the Lampari Kingdom and Anvilmar City had been set up. They had finished debugging the magic signal last week and could officially communicate with each other. Early this morning, a collie who was in charge of this had dragged to the communication control room. She had him talk to 70, who was 2,000 kilometers away in Anvilmar City, just to make this historical conversation even more grand. But she never thought that the conversation between the two would be focused on the war between the Kingdom of Ruhr and the Kanla Empire. It could be considered high level, but then it suddenly became this kind of small matter between a man and a woman. Relax, Steel wouldn't mind. Moreover, Steel has been very busy during this time. She doesn't spend many nights with me in a month. He replied with a sigh. And I know, she has been in our Lampari Kingdom for a while now. As for during this time, she seems to have started promoting her new Moon Chamber of Commerce's magic illusion entertainment system in the Fok Kingdom. Yes, when it is promoted in the Fok Kingdom, her next target will be the Malar Empire. Then wouldn't she be even busier in the future? Wouldn't she have less time to be with you? He was silent for a bit before calmly replying. This is what she chose to do. I support her. 70 on the other side of the magic communicator was silent for a bit. When she spoke again, she changed the topic. All right, let's not talk about this. It's hard to have a convenient conversation like this. So let's discuss the matter of training several heavy industry companies in our Lampari Kingdom. All right, as for the difference between heavy industry and light industry, I already mentioned it to you last time. The magic machine companies in your Lampari Kingdom are all in the light industry category. But to build a solid foundation for the magic machine industry, just relying on light industry isn't enough. The most important thing is heavy industry. As for heavy industry, I suggest you train some companies related to smelting metals, ensuring that you have enough steel and other metals. The first call lasted for more than an hour from the beginning to the end. When Sui walked out of the communication room that a collie had specially set up, he suddenly thought that if this was on Earth, for an international call like this, without any preferential policies, the cost of an hour of call would be a shocking amount. But thinking about it, for his call with 70, the new flyer and the Lampari Kingdom had invested a total of over 3 million gold coins. Based on a rough conversion of purchasing power, this was equivalent to more than 300 million renminbi in the Celestial Court of Earth. Compared to this, the cost of an international call couldn't even be considered a drizzle. If this communication line was only used between him and 70, there was no doubt that it wasn't worth it. So the problem that Sui cared about the most was whether this magic communication network could have the convenience of wireless communication on Earth. At least it could allow different people to use the same magic communication network to have different conversations. In theory, of course this is possible. Akali replied without any hesitation. According to our long-term research, the fluctuation frequency of a mana signal is not fixed. If the fluctuation frequency of the mana signal is different, the magic array used to receive the mana signal, trigger the resonance, and convert the mana signal into sound will have a slight difference. However, it's very hard to automatically change the magic array to receive the corresponding magic signal, right? He asked with a smile. That's right. Akali gave a sigh, looking a bit disappointed. In order for different people to be able to have different conversations at the same time, the magic array in each person's magic communicator has to be completely different. But like this, it's impossible to mass produce the magic communicator, so it can only be customized for each person. But if it's customized, the cost is too high. it definitely isn't something that normal people can use. If it can't be used by everyone, there's no meaning in it. Sui nodded. After thinking about it, he suggested, Akali, I feel that you can change your way of thinking. The problem you're facing now is that each magic communicator must have a different magic array to ensure that it receives different magic signals. But I feel that you can set these magic communicators to be the same, but the magic signals themselves have slight differences. Then, through a central control system, you can control the direction of the transmission of these magic signals. The concept that Sui proposed was actually based on the mobile phone communication principle on Earth, but with some slight modifications. Akali was puzzled at first, but after thinking about it carefully, her eyes lit up. Mr. President, I feel that this research direction seems to be pretty good. I understand. Seeing Akali turn around and leave excitedly, Sui couldn't help but laugh. It was because Akali could devote herself to research so wholeheartedly that she could produce so many amazing results in such a short time. After leaving the Magic Communication Research Center under the Academy of Magic, Sui went straight to the new Flyer Guards training base in the northwest corner of the Principality of Constantine. The last time he brought Kennard to watch the training, the results weren't obvious, so he didn't insist and didn't continue to bring Kennard. And if Kennard also came today, he would definitely be shocked, because the training target of the guards today wasn't Great Mage Runa. The one floating in the air was actually Mentor Carmilla. Countless beautiful beams of light streaked across the sky and instantly condensed on Mentor Carmilla's body in the air, causing a series of violent explosions that looked extremely shocking. But after the smoke and dust dissipated, Mentor Carmilla was still safe and sound in the air, without the slightest injury. Of course, the new Flyer Guards surrounding Mentor Carmilla didn't have the slightest intention of stopping. They continued to activate all kinds of military magic machines and crazily attacked Mentor Carmilla once again. For a moment, countless violent explosions sounded incessantly, as if there were beautiful fireworks exploding in the air. Even though it was still noon, the light of the explosions completely suppressed the strong sunlight, showing the ferocity of the guards' attacks. Sui believed that facing such a fierce attack, even a great mage wouldn't be able to hold on for long. However, Archmagus Camilla had a relaxed and easy look on his face the entire time. After watching from the side for a while, Sui stepped forward to stop the training. Grandfather, do you feel that the guards' attacks are a threat to you now? Sui handed Mentor Carmilla a bottle of water and asked. Mentor Carmilla thought for a moment and replied, Of course it's wrong to say that there's no threat at all, but I'm only taking a one-sided beating. If a fight really broke out, they wouldn't be able to hurt me. If it really doesn't work, I can still easily escape if I want to. Is that so? Sui furrowed his brows. If that's the case, then if a Magus-level mage attacks us, the guards won't be of any use? Mentor Carmilla looked deeply at Sui and sighed softly. She shook her head and said, Sui, it's true that you're a genius, but there are many times when you think too simply. How could a great mage like you not know what rank a Magus is? If a Magus could be killed by a normal person with a military magic machine, that would be too ridiculous. But no buts. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking about how to deal with the Kanla Empire's magi if we start a war with the Kanla Empire, right? Mentor Carmilla rolled her eyes at him. Sui chuckled and rubbed his head. I can't hide anything from you, old man. Should I say that you're being whimsical or arrogant? Mentor Carmilla rolled her eyes again. There hasn't been a great Magus-level guy on the continent for over 1,000 years. Magi are the pinnacle of existence. If they could be casually killed by a normal person, then all the mages on the continent should change professions early on. Sui curled his lips and felt some disdain in his heart. No matter how powerful a Magus was, no matter how powerful a great Magus was like in the legends, they were close to being gods. If a nuclear bomb was brought over from Earth, he didn't believe that they would be able to withstand it. Chapter 859. After conversing with Mentor Carmilla, Sui had to admit that with the power of the military magic machines produced by the Shinfei Chamber of Commerce, it was impossible to kill an archmage in a direct confrontation. However, Mentor Carmilla also admitted that these military magic machines could still pose a threat to him. Therefore, as long as he used the appropriate method, he could actually contend with an archmage for a period of time, and even have the hope of forcing them to retreat. The key was that as long as the military magic machines were supplied with sufficient supplies, they could continuously attack. No matter how powerful an archmage was, there was a limit to their magic power. If they kept suppressing an archmage, then the end result would be the archmage retreating due to a lack of magic power. However, the problem was, how could they suppress an archmage? Compared to the military magic machines at the current stage, archmages could use extremely powerful magic. Most importantly, they had incomparable flexibility. If they were unprepared, an archmage could easily explode with great power in a short period of time. However, the new flyer guards equipped with military magic machines would find it very difficult to immediately explode with even greater power to suppress an archmage. If they were to encounter an enemy, it was very likely that an archmage could casually wipe out an entire team of new flyer guards and then retreat without any injuries. They would then look for another opportunity to attack, and the new flyer guards would have no way to deal with them. I already told you not to be delusional about being able to face an archmage head-on. If you're really worried about the archmages of the Canla Empire, then you should first think about how to defend against their attacks. As long as you can defend against them, then the use of an archmage is actually very limited. At the end of the day, there are too few archmages, and they can't truly replace an army. Mentor Carmilla gave her final advice. That's true, but I don't like to be too passive. He spread out his hands. Mentor Carmilla rolled her eyes. You still want to take the initiative against an archmage? Do you think you're Grand Magus? He helplessly laughed bitterly. All right, I was thinking too far ahead. But now that the Kingdom of Ruhr is doing this experiment for me, I can save a lot of effort. Mentor Carmilla was stunned. I thought you were sincerely helping the Kingdom of Ruhr this time. So you're just using them as guinea pigs? You can't say that. He smiled and shook his head. The Kingdom of Ruhr is a barrier between the Principality of Constantine and the Canla Empire. If we can protect them, it will be beneficial to our Chamber of Commerce. Then why don't you use this reason to convince those fellows in the Chamber of Commerce? Why do you have to cause such a ruckus and cause a bunch of people to secretly guess that there is a conflict within the Chamber of Commerce, and that you, as the president, have lost control of the Chamber of Commerce? Instructor Carmilla couldn't help but ask. Because I discovered a problem. Apart from me, it seems like everyone believes that the Canla Empire is undefeatable. Nonsense. That's the Canla Empire. What makes you think that a small country like the Kingdom of Ruhr can defeat them? Mentor Carmilla rolled her eyes at him. That's why I'm too lazy to use words to convince them. I hope that the Kingdom of Ruhr can use facts to prove my point. Grandfather, what do you think? Mentor Carmilla pondered for a moment and nodded. I thought the same as them before. But after training with the guards, I feel that the Kingdom of Ruhr might actually have a chance of winning. Is that so? He smiled, but his face suddenly fell. He said dejectedly, but the problem is the archmages. The strongest people in the Kingdom of Ruhr are only a few grand mages. If the Canla Empire sends out archmages, I'm afraid that they won't be able to withstand it. Mentor Carmilla smiled and patted Su Yi's shoulder, comforting him. Don't worry, at least in the early stages, the Canla Empire won't send out archmages. Grand mages and mages above the level of grand mages are not allowed to participate in the war of invading other countries. Otherwise, they will be removed from the Sorcerer's Guild. This is one of the principles of the Sorcerer's Guild when it was first established. Mentor Carmilla explained. There's such a rule? That's great. Su Yi's eyes suddenly lit up and he clenched his fists. If that's the case, then I have 100% confidence that the Kingdom of Ruhr will win this war. Mentor Carmilla sighed and had a complicated expression on her face. Before Su Yi created these military magic machines, everyone on the continent firmly believed that the main factor that determined the outcome of a war was which side had more powerful mages. But now that there were military magic machines, Mitter Carmilla was abnormally certain that the deciding factor of a war was which side had more powerful military magic machines. As a result, the role that the mages played in the war would be greatly reduced. In this way, the status of mages on the continent would be severely affected. To be more pessimistic, mages might even lose the transcendent status that they had enjoyed for thousands of years on the continent. As a traditional mage, Minter Carmilla couldn't help but feel a little disappointed about this possible effect. But when she saw Su Yi's face that was full of sunshine and confidence, Minter Carmilla couldn't help but laugh. Although it was very likely that mages would lose their high status on the continent because of this guy, it was also because of this guy that mages realized that there was another path that they could choose from. Compared to the powerful and destructive impression that mages left on people in the past, if they followed the path that Su Yi had planned, the impression that mages left on people would be more of convenience. On the other hand, the impression that mages left on people would be one that made people respect them from the bottom of their hearts rather than fear them. Minter Carmilla liked this change very much. Although she was a little disappointed, she still sincerely hoped that Su Yi could achieve his dream. This kind of support had nothing to do with steel. It was purely because of her appreciation and recognition of Su Yi. Hashtag in the autumn of the year 3789 of the Continental Calendar, a war that broke out in the southwest of Signs attracted the attention of the entire continent. The two sides involved in this war were the Kanla Empire, one of the two largest empires on the continent, and the Kingdom of Ruhr, an unknown small kingdom in the Signs. Originally, according to everyone's estimation, the difference in strength between the two sides was too great. The Kanla Empire would easily crush the Kingdom of Ruhr without giving them any chance to retaliate. The only suspense was how long the Kingdom of Ruhr could last. However, the progress of this war was beyond everyone's expectations. At the end of the 9th month, the Kanla Empire officially declared war on the Kingdom of Ruhr. Immediately after, they gathered 3 legions, a total of 50,000 soldiers, and launched an attack on the Kingdom of Ruhr. The Kingdom of Ruhr immediately accepted the declaration of war and gathered 20,000 soldiers at the border of the two countries to prepare for a counterattack. On the 27th day of the 9th month, the first contact between the two sides took place at the border of the two countries. In the end, after a day of intense fighting, the Kanla Empire lost 3,000 soldiers and was forced to retreat. On the other hand, the Kingdom of Ruhr's losses were grow. On the 28th day of the 9th month, the two sides once again clashed at the border of the two countries. This time, the Kanla Empire learned from yesterday's lesson and launched a massive attack with 30,000 soldiers, intending to crush the Kingdom of Ruhr's army in one fell swoop. However, the end result of the battle was that the Kanla Empire lost once again, with 7,000 casualties. The Rudsun Kingdom also suffered losses, but it was negligible, almost negligible. On the 3rd day of the 10th month, the Kanla Empire's army, which had rested for 5 days, once again launched an attack on the Kingdom of Ruhr. They sent all of their forces into the battle, with a total of 40,000 soldiers participating. At the same time, the Kingdom of Ruhr also sent all of their forces into the battle. In the end, after 3 days of intense fighting, the Kanla Empire continued to lose, losing more than 10,000 soldiers. On the other hand, the Kingdom of Ruhr suffered more than 1,000 casualties for the first time. However, compared to the Kanla Empire's losses, the 1,000 casualties were negligible. Thus, 3 battles took place in 10 days. The Kanla Empire had sent in 50,000 soldiers, but they suffered more than 20,000 casualties. On the other hand, the Kingdom of Ruhr had sent in less than 20,000 soldiers, but they suffered less than 2,000 casualties. The disparity in casualties shocked everyone who was paying attention to this battle. Although before the battle, some people had guessed that the Kanla Empire would suffer a small loss because they underestimated their enemy, the Kanla Empire's shocking casualties could no longer be described as a small loss. It was a complete defeat. On the other hand, The Kingdom of Ruhr's army displayed a strength that shocked everyone. With 20,000 soldiers against 50,000 enemies, they were able to reduce their own casualties to such a low level, while inflicting such a high level of casualties on the enemy. This completely defied common sense. No matter how elite the Kingdom of Ruhr's army was, it shouldn't have been able to achieve such a ridiculous result. If it was said that all the countries and people on the continent were paying attention to this war because the continent had been peaceful for too long, so a war that suddenly broke out would naturally become the focus of attention. After the 3 battles between the Kandra Empire and the Rudsun Kingdom, everyone's eyes were focused on this war. Among these attentive gazes, most of them were puzzled. The Rudsun Kingdom's army, just what did they rely on to have such a shocking battle strength? Chapter 860. General Mikhail wanted to know the answer to this question more than anyone else. A month ago, the Empire's military was discussing how to deal with the arrogant Kingdom of Ruhr who dared to challenge the great Kanla Empire. Although everyone agreed that a small country like the Kingdom of Ruhr shouldn't be taken seriously and could be easily dealt with, he insisted on sending out these 3 legions to invade the Kingdom of Ruhr. The reason was that one of the legions was the one he was in previously and belonged to his old subordinates. Furthermore, he had arranged for his wife's younger brother to be the leader of the cavalry brigade. He wanted to use this opportunity to gain some merits for his old subordinates and his wife's younger brother so that they could be promoted in the future. But he never would have thought that this attack on a small country like the Rudsun Kingdom would actually fail miserably. In the end, the Empire's army would be defeated. Moreover, what made him even angrier was that in order for his wife's little brother to obtain the greatest merit, he had deliberately placed his cavalry in the vanguard position. In the end, in the first battle, the cavalry led by his wife's little brother had been completely annihilated by the Rudsun Kingdom's army. Even his wife's little brother had been buried, not being able to escape. Although he had never liked his wife's brother who had a glib tongue, he was still his wife's younger brother. Now that his younger brother had died in battle because of his own arrangements, one could imagine how sad and angry his wife would be when she heard the news. Knowing this, General Mikhail mercilessly vented his anger on General Cook, who was in charge of this operation. Trash! You led 50,000 elites, but you couldn't even beat 20,000 people from the Rudsun Kingdom and suffered heavy casualties. How could you still have the face to stand here? If I were you, I would have killed myself to atone for my sins. General Cook looked at General Mikhail with a cold expression and did not say a word. Although both of them could be addressed as generals, General Mikhail had been personally awarded medal by the Emperor and was officially recognized by the Empire's military as one of the 5 great protectors of the Empire. He had an extremely high status and reputation in the entire Empire, and was not someone a mere commander of a local legion could compare to. So even though he was dissatisfied in his heart, he could only maintain his silence and didn't dare to refute. General Mikhail scolded for a full 20 minutes before he stopped, panting heavily. He then took out a document and threw it to General Cook. Because of your failure, the military has relieved you of your duties as the commander. I will now be in charge of this operation. As for you, just wait to be held accountable by the military. General Cook opened the document and looked at it. He found that the contents were not too unexpected, so he put it aside. Sir Mikhail, I can't deny our failure this time, but I must remind you that the combat power of the Kingdom of Ruhr's army is far beyond your imagination. I hope you can be more cautious. General Mikhail said in a low voice, What? Are you still trying to find excuses for yourself? A trivial Rudsun Kingdom. How strong could their battle strength be? You're the commander-in-chief, yet you've achieved such a result. Do you think you can just find an excuse to get away with it? I'm not trying to explain myself. It's just that the Kingdom of Ruhr's army is really strange. General Mikhail waved his hand in annoyance. All right, stop talking nonsense. There's nothing for you to do here. General Cook's face turned red. He wanted to say more, but when he saw the impatient expression on General Mikhail's face, he felt a chill in his heart. He couldn't help but snort coldly and walk away. Trash! General Mikhail looked at his back and spat out a mouthful of saliva. He then began to study the battle report left behind by General Cook on the table. After studying it for a while, General McHale couldn't help but frown. From these battle reports, the Kingdom of Ruhr's army was really strange. This was because, according to the battle report, every time the two sides fought, the Kingdom of Ruhr would launch an unusually dense rain of arrows to attack. When the actual battle started, the Kingdom of Ruhr's army was extremely mobile. It was always difficult for the Kamla Empire's soldiers to even touch them. At the same time, they could also launch strange long-range attacks that were extremely lethal. This caused the two sides to almost never have a proper battle. This caused the Kamla Empire's army to suffer heavy casualties and eventually lose. What a joke! General McHale threw the battle report on the table. How can there be such a strange army in this world? This General Cook, can't he even find excuses for himself? General McHale couldn't understand the situation described in the battle report. He decided to ignore the contents of the report and do what he wanted to do. This time, he brought the 3rd Legion of the Empire's army. Although there were also 50,000 soldiers, their equipment and training were far superior to the 50,000 local soldiers led by General Cook. Naturally, their combat power was much higher. The trash General Cook led a group of trash and was defeated by the Kingdom of Ruhr. However, this didn't affect General McHale's confidence in defeating the Kingdom of Ruhr. Just as he was thinking about the specific tactics, a guard suddenly opened the tent and walked in. "Sir, the Deputy Chief of Naval Staff, Sir Russell, wishes to see you." Russell? General McHale was stunned. Didn't he depart with the naval fleet? According to the time, he should have already landed on the southern coast of the Kingdom of Ruhr. Why is he suddenly here? After thinking for a while, General McHale waved his hand and said, "Let him in." "Yes." A moment later, Russell was let in by the guard. "Sir Russell, why are you here? Do you want to say that your Navy's operation also met with an accident?" Seeing Russell, General McHale let out a mocking laugh. The Empire's army and navy had always been in conflict because of budget issues. Because the army had always been more important than the navy, the budget was also greatly skewed. Therefore, when facing naval officers, the army officers always had a sense of superiority. General McHale was no exception. Russell didn't have the slightest intention of joking. He calmly nodded. "Yes, Sir McHale, I came this time to tell you that the Navy's operation has completely failed. We can't go deep into the waters of the Kingdom of Ruhr and can't successfully land as planned." General McHale was stunned and then laughed loudly. His laughter was full of mockery. "Ha! I thought that your Navy was confident enough to take the initiative to attack and would definitely bring us a surprise. I didn't think that you wouldn't even touch a hair of the Kingdom of Ruhr and would retreat. This is simply a disgrace." Russell was silent for a bit before giving a sigh and saying with a serious look, "Sir McHale, I didn't come this time to discuss these meaningless things with you. I just came to remind you that you can't underestimate the Kingdom of Ruhr. They have obtained the support of the New Flyer, and their strength has far surpassed your imagination." New Flyer? General McHale was stunned again. After thinking about it, he reacted. "I seem to have heard of this name before. Is it the company that makes those magic air conditioners? What? Is this small company that powerful? The Kingdom of Ruhr has obtained their support, and we can't even beat the Kingdom of Ruhr? I'm not certain, but it's better to be careful." Russell shook his head. Because the Kingdom of Ruhr has obtained the support of the New Flyer, their army has been equipped with the military magic machines produced by the New Flyer. These military magic machines are completely different from the weapons we've used before, so when facing them, we have to be careful. Military magic machines? General McHale frowned. General McHale knitted his brows. "Just what are these things? Do you have detailed information on them?" Russell helplessly spread his hands. "The New Flyer has tightly protected the information on the military magic machines, so I can't obtain any specific information. But our Empire's Navy has bought 3 guard ships made of steel from the New Flyer, which are equipped with some military magic machines. Through the might of these military magic machines, we can infer how strong the other military magic machines are." Seeing how serious Russell was, General McHale put down some of the contempt in his heart but he still didn't care that much. This new flyer's military magic machines might be unique, but they were just a small company without any fame. Adding in the fact that the Kingdom of Ruhr was only a small country, how could they pose a threat to the powerful Kamla Empire? After casually saying a few words to Russell, General Mikhail used the pre-war meeting as an excuse to ask Russell to leave. Russell, of course, could see that General Mikhail wasn't paying attention. He originally wanted to say a few more words to persuade him, but then he thought better of it and gave up on the idea. After leaving the commander's tent, Russell looked at the flickering silhouettes near the camp and narrowed his eyes, revealing a trace of coldness. This fellow Mikhail didn't care about the military magic machines he'd mentioned in the new flyer, so Russell was almost certain that his operation this time wouldn't go smoothly. This was of course a blow to Mikhail and the Empire's 3rd Legion, but from the perspective of the Empire's military, this wasn't necessarily a bad thing. When the Empire's navy wanted to buy the 3 guard ships from a new flyer, they were met with all sorts of obstructions. If it weren't for the support of the Navy's staff, this proposal might not have been passed. The reason for this was that the Empire's military didn't care about Russell's analysis of the guard ships at all, so they weren't willing to increase the budget to buy another guard ship. This time, the Empire's military still didn't care about the new flyer and the military magic machines from the new flyer, so they could only let them suffer a loss. Only then would they have a chance to pay attention. Compared to the Empire's navy, the Empire's army was more favored by the military. If the army suffered a great loss this time, and the military still didn't treat it seriously, then it would be too unreasonable. Chapter 861. Over 100 large transport magic cars crossed the border between the Lampari Kingdom and the Ruhr Kingdom, quickly heading to the east of the Kingdom of Ruhr. Since the new flyer invented the large transport magic cars, this was the first time that so many large transport magic cars had been gathered together. Over 100 large transport magic cars were gathered together, forming a motorcade that was over 2 kilometers long, which looked very magnificent. If one looked down from above, it looked like a long snake that was quickly slithering across the ground. This motorcade was a motorcade formed by the large companies of the Lampari Kingdom. This time, they were entering the Kingdom of Ruhr in large amounts, heading to the east of the Kingdom of Ruhr. These large transport magic cars were loaded with various items that the Kingdom of Ruhr had ordered from the Lampari Kingdom. Now that they were being transported, it was to supply the Kingdom of Ruhr's army that was currently fighting the Kamla Empire's 3rd Regiment. Although the Kingdom of Ruhr's army's performance on the battlefield had shocked everyone, no matter how good the army's performance was, what decided the outcome of a war was still logistics. Especially now that the Kingdom of Ruhr's army was equipped with large amounts of military magic machines, they had a higher requirement for supplies. Not mentioning anything else, just in the first battle, the Kingdom of Ruhr's army had used up 130,000 arrows in just a single day because of the large amount of magic repeating crossbows. Although the killing power was shocking, it was impossible for the blacksmiths of the Kingdom of Ruhr's army to replenish all 130,000 arrows. Not to mention that the fine steel arrows used in these magic repeating crossbows had to meet the standards set by New Flyer before they could be used. If it was made by traditional blacksmiths, not mentioning how slow it would be, they wouldn't be able to meet the standards. After all, it was hard for humans to maintain the same accuracy as machines. For example, there were 2 arrows in King Tarek's hands at the same time, but after carefully looking at the arrows in his hands, he touched them for a bit before forcefully bending them. In the end, he gave a bitter laugh and shook his head. These 2 arrows looked the same at first glance, but when they were held in his hands at the same time, he could clearly feel that the one in his right hand was a bit lighter. Moreover, the arrow in his left hand was very smooth, and the arrow in his right hand was very rough. There were even some holes that couldn't be seen, but could be easily felt. The most important thing was that if the 2 arrows were held in front of him, he would find that the arrow in his left hand was very straight while the one in his right hand was clearly curved. Although these differences weren't particularly obvious, King Tarek, who had been keen on horseback archery since he was a child, knew very well that if he were to compete in archery in the same environment, the arrow in his left hand would definitely be much more effective. As for why there was this difference, the arrow in King Tarek's left hand was the standard magic repeating crossbow arrow that the Kingdom of Ruhr had ordered from the Spirit Fox Commercial Guild in the Black Rice Wasteland. The Spirit Fox Commercial Guild belonged to a Fox Beastman tribe in the Black Rice Wasteland, but King Tarek was very clear that they were backed by the new flyer. The arrow in his right hand was made by the blacksmiths that the Kingdom of Ruhr's military urgently recruited due to the outbreak of war. However, there was an obvious difference in quality. But the real reason why King Tarek was forced to give up on using the blacksmiths in his country to make the crossbow arrows was because the speed of making the arrows was far from enough and the difference in quality. The most important reason was the cost. If he ordered the magic repeating crossbow arrows from the Spirit Fox Commercial Guild, the total price would be 20 silver coins for a tube of 20 arrows. Because the Kingdom of Ruhr had ordered in large quantities, the Spirit Fox Commercial Guild gave a discount and set the price at 19 silver coins per tube. In other words, the price of a crossbow arrow wasn't even 1 silver coin. If it was made by blacksmiths, even if they didn't count the labor costs, the average cost of a crossbow arrow was over 2 silver coins. If it was 1, 2, 100, or 200 crossbow bolts, the difference wouldn't matter. However, in a state of war, the consumption of more than 100,000 crossbow bolts in a day was as high as 1,000 gold coins. If all the crossbow bolts were to be used by the blacksmiths, the difference in cost alone could not be ignored. With the above reasons, even if King Tarek didn't want the Kingdom of Ruhr's army to be controlled by outsiders, he had to accept this fact. Thinking of this, King Tarek shook his head and threw the 2 arrows in his hand to the side. He looked out the window of the magic airship at the large transport magic cars on the ground before turning to Sue E on the side. Chairman Sue, when will the magic rockets arrive? Sue E revealed a faint smile. Your Majesty can be assured. The magic rockets are currently being loaded, and if nothing unexpected happens, the first batch of 2,000 should arrive in 3 days. 3 days? King Tarek looked to the east before giving a slow nod. That's good. The Kamla Empire should take a few more days to prepare. They won't be in a rush to start another war. If they still can't learn to be more cautious after their last failure, the Kamla Empire really has disappointed me. Sue E said with a smile. Isn't it better if they're a bit stupid? King Tarek took a sip of tea before pausing to say, that way it'll be easier for us to win this war, and your new flyers' military magic machines will be able to display their splendor in this war. Both sides will be satisfied with this result. Sue, he spread his hands and gave a shrug. I'm worried that if they're stupid enough to not understand the situation, it'll be hard for us to promote the Kamla Empire in the future. You're worrying too much. King Tarek shook his head and pointed to the east. Right now, the entire continent's attention is focused on that battlefield. Everyone has already seen the role of the military magic machines in it. I'm sure that when this war ends, oh no, before it ends, countless people will come to your company to purchase military magic machines. Chairman Sue, how do you plan to deal with this? If I say that I'll prioritize selling to the Kamla Empire, would you believe me, Your Majesty? King Tarek was silent for a moment before shaking his head with a smile. Chairman Sue, this joke isn't funny. If you had chosen to do this, our Kingdom of Ruhr would have been completely conquered by the Kamla Empire. Sue E laughed and waved his hand as he said, All right, let's not talk about this meaningless nonsense. Your Majesty, do you have any other suggestions regarding the gear factory that we're working on? King Tarek thought for a moment. It's best that we decide the location of the gear factory. Also, it's best that your new flyer doesn't have any relationship with it. Simply put, this gear factory will be completely operated by our Kingdom of Ruhr. Sue, he was a bit surprised. After thinking for a moment, he slightly frowned. Your Majesty, this is different from what we discussed before. If our company doesn't have any relationship with this gear factory, then we'll have a lot of trouble if we want to invest more in this factory. This isn't good for either of us, right? No, Chairman Sue, this will indeed cause a lot of trouble for our Kingdom of Ruhr, but for your new flyer, it'll save you a lot of trouble, right? King Tarek pointed to the east again. I actually understand your company's concerns about supporting our kingdom of Ruhr. Therefore, before the situation is clear, I feel that it's best that your company doesn't have such an obvious relationship with us. He was really surprised this time. He looked at King Tarek in shock for a while and slowly shook his head. No, Your Majesty. Do you know that when the company first discussed this matter, most of the people in the company had the same idea as you? They didn't want the company to support the kingdom of Ruhr too obviously. However, they were all rejected by me. Do you know why? King Tarek squinted his eyes and looked at Why? No matter how you look at it, our kingdom of Ruhr shouldn't be able to defeat the Kanla Empire. Even I didn't have much confidence before the first battle. Chairman Su, why do you have so much confidence in us? I don't have confidence in your kingdom of Ruhr, but in our company. He smiled. Or from another perspective, from a merchant's point of view, the benefits of investing in your kingdom of Ruhr are much higher than investing in the Kanla Empire. If we support the Kanla Empire, although we should be able to easily defeat the kingdom of Ruhr, this won't allow our company to receive special attention from the Kanla Empire. Moreover, once the kingdom of Ruhr is destroyed, the Principality of Constantine will have to face the Kanla Empire. This isn't something I want to see. King Tarek was silent for a moment and slowly nodded. I understand what you mean, but Chairman Su, doing this for your company. Or should I say that you're taking a much greater risk? Is it really worth it? He shrugged. A merchant who isn't willing to take risks isn't a good merchant. But Chairman Su, are you sure your company is willing to take this risk with you? He pointed at his feet. I think this is enough to explain everything. King Tarek turned his head and looked at the caravan that was gradually disappearing into the distance. He lightly nodded. Your Majesty, if you still don't trust my sincerity, then this will definitely give you more confidence in us. He smiled as he handed over a rectangular box to King Tarek. King Tarek's eyes narrowed as he took the box without hesitation. When he opened the box, he found that in addition to a blueprint, there was also a mold made of metal. King Tarek picked up the standard arrow from the magic repeating crossbow and inserted it into the mold. The arrow immediately fit perfectly into the mold. Not a bit more, not a bit less. Chapter 862. The meeting between Su-Yi and King Tarek was actually more of a symbolic meaning. As the chairman of the New Flyer, Su-Yi personally came out to represent the firm attitude of the New Flyer in supporting the Kingdom of Ruhr. This allowed King Tarek to be assured and focus on defending against the attacks of the Kanla Empire. Of course, what really played an important role was the endless supply of goods from the Lampari Kingdom, the Principality of Constantine, and the Black Rice Wasteland. With the powerful road network and the new logistics network of the transport magic cars, after these goods were produced, it only took 2 to 3 days for them to be transported to the Kingdom of Ruhr's army that needed them, allowing them to maintain their powerful battle strength. This was the most important reason why the Kingdom of Ruhr's army could not only defeat the Kanla Empire's army, they could even win battles. King Tarek was well aware of this. So even if the New Flyer didn't mention it, he had already given a series of favorable conditions to the New Flyer. He hoped that he could obtain enough support from the New Flyer, the most important being the various military magic machines. Although the New Flyer didn't express their stance on the surface, Su-Yi, as the chairman of the New Flyer, had already expressed his support to King Tarek in private. Other than satisfying the various requests of King Tarek, Su-Yi had actually taken the initiative to transfer the technology for the magic repeating crossbows to the Kingdom of Ruhr. This was a pleasant surprise for King Tarek. Of course, it wasn't just King Tarek who knew about the support of the Kingdom of Ruhr. The Kanla Empire didn't know about it either. In the beginning, the Kanla Empire didn't care about this because everyone thought that with the strength of the Kanla Empire, they could easily defeat the Kingdom of Ruhr. Even if there were other countries supporting the Kingdom of Ruhr, it didn't mean anything and couldn't affect the advancement of the Kanla Empire at all. But after the Kanla Empire and the Kingdom of Ruhr fought several times, and the Kanla Empire was defeated, the attitude of the Kanla Empire changed. Your Majesty, I represent the Empire to give you a serious warning. Immediately stop all material support to the Kingdom of Ruhr. Otherwise, the Empire's parliament will decide that your country is on the side of the Kingdom of Ruhr and become the Empire's enemy. As for the consequences of becoming the Empire's enemy, I don't think you need me to remind you, right? Seveni covered her mouth with her hand and gave a yawn. She looked at the serious Kamla Empire's ambassador to the Lampari Kingdom, Klein Sweden, and revealed a relaxed smile, signaling for him to sit down first. Mr. Ambassador, the material support you just mentioned to the Kingdom of Ruhr, according to what I know, it is a normal trade between the two countries. This can't be considered military support to the Kingdom of Ruhr, right? Ambassador Sweden gave a cold snort. Whether it is military support or not, it is up to the Empire's parliament to decide. It isn't up to you to decide. Oh, Seveni said in a surprised voice. Ambassador Sweden, your meaning is that as long as the Kamla Empire is willing, we don't need to give any evidence, and you can decide that our Lampari Kingdom is providing military support to the Kingdom of Ruhr? If it is like this, why did you give me this warning today? Isn't it up to you to decide? Ambassador Sweden gave a cough as he looked a bit awkward. Cool. Although it will be up to the Empire's parliament to decide. If your side can avoid the suspicion of the parliament, that would be even better. But in the end, it is up to you to decide. This isn't related to whether we are really providing military support to the Kingdom of Ruhr, right? Seveni asked back. Ambassador Sweden gave a strong cough before waving his hand and saying with a serious look, in short, Your Majesty, since the Empire is at war with the Kingdom of Ruhr, everything that is beneficial to the Kingdom of Ruhr will be viewed as hostile by our side. The Parliament hopes that your country can stop sending all goods to the Kingdom of Ruhr. Cool. I'm talking about everything. Whether it is military or civilian goods, you can't send them to the Kingdom of Ruhr. Do you understand what I mean? Oh, I understand. But, Mr. Ambassador, I just said that this is a normal transaction between our Lampuri Kingdom's companies and the Rudsun Kingdom's companies. If I force them to stop these transactions, who will bear the losses of these companies? Our Lampari Kingdom's royal family? Or your Kamla empires? Of course it's their own responsibility, Ambassador Sweden said bluntly. Ambassador Sweden said without any hesitation. These companies dared to make transactions with the Kingdom of Ruhr when our Kamla Empire is at war with the Kingdom of Ruhr. This is a provocation to the Empire. The Empire, not punishing them, is already benevolent. Could it be that they still want to go against the Empire's decision? Hearing this, the smile on Seveni's face slowly disappeared and her eyes turned cold. Mr. Ambassador, I have to remind you, they are companies of our Lampari Kingdom, not companies of your Kamla Empire. Even if they need to be punished, that is our Lampari Kingdom's matter. It is unrelated to you. Ambassador Sweden wasn't used to Seveni's cold and strong words. After looking at her in surprise, he said in a deep voice, Your Majesty, could it be that you're planning on ignoring the warning from the Parliament? Seveni was silent for a bit before suddenly asking, Mr. Ambassador, according to what I know, the countries that have been trading with the Kingdom of Ruhr isn't just our Lampari Kingdom. There are also many surrounding countries. May I ask if the Kamla Empire has given them the same warning? This, Ambassador Sweden hesitated. If one looked seriously, they would find that there was a trace of anger, doubt, and helplessness on his face. It was like Seveni said, it wasn't just the Lampari Kingdom that had been trading with the Kingdom of Ruhr. There was also the Sak Kingdom and the Falk Kingdom that were on the same level as the Kingdom of Ruhr. Other than this, there was the Drake Duchy, the Principality of Constantine, the Norton Duchy, the Mirando Duchy, and other small duchies. The Kandra Empire had also been defeated in the early stages of the war, so they had given these countries the same warning to stop trading with the Rudsun Kingdom. Among them, the Norton Dukedom agreed without hesitation and immediately carried it out. But other than the Norton Duchy, the other countries didn't agree to the Kamla Empire's request. Although most countries were very polite to the Kamla Empire, when faced with this warning and request, they were very ambiguous. Take the Principality of Constantine as an example. The Congress representing the Principality of Constantine said that they would study the warning from the Kamla Empire and hold a Congress to discuss it. But a week had passed since the Kamla Empire had given their warning to the Principality of Constantine, and the Congress of the Principality of Constantine was still discussing it, so they hadn't made a final decision yet. During this time, on the road from the Principality of Constantine to the Kingdom of Ruhr, there were countless large transport magic cars filled with large amounts of goods entering the Kingdom of Ruhr. Of course, compared to these small duchies, the ones that the Kamla Empire cared about the most were the Lampari Kingdom, the Sack Kingdom, and the Fok Kingdom. But the Kamla Empire's warning to the Sack Kingdom was like a stone thrown into the sea. They didn't receive any response at all. The Fok Kingdom directly refused, saying that the Kamla Empire had no right to interfere in the normal trade between the Fok Kingdom and the Kingdom of Ruhr. This attitude didn't exceed the expectations of the Kamla Empire's Congress because the Fok Kingdom was close to the Malar Empire, so they had always been closer to the Malar Empire. Naturally, they wouldn't get along with the Kamla Empire. So the only one left was the Lampari Kingdom ruled by Her Majesty in front of them. The Lampari Kingdom was close to the Kingdom of Ruhr, so it was very convenient for them to support the Kingdom of Ruhr. Moreover, according to the reports, the Lampari Kingdom's national strength had greatly increased in the past few years, even surpassing the Sack Kingdom that had suppressed them for several hundred years. They had already become the strongest country among the small countries in the southwest corner of the Signs. If the Lampari Kingdom supported the Kingdom of Ruhr, it would make it harder for the Kamla Empire to attack the Kingdom of Ruhr. So this time the Kamla Empire had sent their ambassador to the Lampari Kingdom, Klein Sweden, to visit Queen 70. He had personally given her the warning from the Kamla Empire's Congress, hoping that she would understand the seriousness of this matter and the serious attitude the Kamla Empire had towards this matter. But Ambassador Sweden never thought that Queen 70 would have this kind of ambiguous attitude. Not only did she keep pushing it away, she even asked about the attitudes of the surrounding countries with a deep meaning. Ambassador Sweden didn't feel that he could hide this matter from Queen 70, but saying that the other countries didn't agree wouldn't help his mission at all. After hesitating a bit, he replied in a deep voice, "The Empire has also given a serious warning to the other countries." "What are the attitudes of the other countries?" 70 asked. Ambassador Sweden gave a cold snort before replying. "This is the request of our Kamla Empire. Who dares to have an opinion?" 70 pursed her lips into a smile. "But Mr. Ambassador, according to what I know, there hasn't been a single country that has agreed to the request of the Kamla Empire." Ambassador Sweden's face turned a bit red before he revealed a serious expression. "If they dare go against the Empire on this matter, they will be punished by the Empire in the future." "Oh!" 70 gave a crisp laugh as she looked at Ambassador Sweden with a bright smile. "But Mr. Ambassador, the one who has gone against the Kamla Empire the most is the Kingdom of Ruhr. Have they been punished by the Empire?" Ambassador Sweden's expression froze. Seeing the smile of deep meaning on 70's face, he instantly understood. His meeting today was destined to have no results because not only did the Empire not easily crush the Kingdom of Ruhr, they were even easily defeated by the Kingdom of Ruhr several times. Under the influence of this battle record, the Empire's deterrence towards these small countries had been seriously affected. Or to put it more seriously, if they couldn't take care of the Kingdom of Ruhr, the Empire's prestige in the Signs would be in danger. This was several times more serious than losing to the Kingdom of Ruhr. Chapter 863. Whether the prestige of the Kandra Empire was in danger or not, General Mikhail didn't have time to think about it. He just knew that he was in serious danger right now. The sound of countless arrows piercing through the air could be heard. It was so densely packed that it almost gave people the illusion that there was a rainstorm. However, this rainstorm carried a strong threat of death. General Mikhail watched the rainstorm fall and the soldiers around him fall like harvested straws. For the first time, he felt a little panicked. What the hell is going on? These fellows from the Rudsun Kingdom. How could they have such strong killing power? "Sir, be careful!" A guard beside him suddenly shouted and rushed in front of him. He raised the huge shield in his hand and blocked the two of them. Ding, 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 ding. A series of crisp sounds of arrows hitting the shield rang out, and the personal guard couldn't help but take a few steps back. He only managed to stop himself when he almost crashed into General Mailhair. "Sir, are you all right?" The guard turned around and asked General McHale. "I'm fine." General McHale shook his head, but his eyes stopped on the huge shield in the guard's hand. He could not help but narrow his eyes. This huge shield was made by the most famous blacksmith in Wimbledon City. It was made of solid iron, and the thinnest part was only the thickness of a palm. However, the arrows that fell just now had created countless deep dents on its surface. It looked like the shield was about to be penetrated. It could be seen that the arrows were not only powerful, but also lethal. Even this huge shield that was meticulously made could not withstand the arrows. It was no wonder that the armor worn by his soldiers was like paper in front of the shield. It did not reflect any defensive ability at all. General McHale turned around and looked at the countless soldiers who had fallen on the battlefield. He was hesitant. If this continued, there was almost no hope of winning this battle. However, if he retreated just like this, wouldn't he be slapping himself in the face? After taking over the command of the Kingdom of Ruhr from General Cook, General McHale only rested for less than a week before launching another attack on the Kingdom of Ruhr. This time, he directly sent out 30,000 soldiers from the 3rd Legion of the Empire. He planned to defeat the Kingdom of Ruhr in a head-on battle to establish his dominance. However, he did not expect the Kingdom of Ruhr's army to be so lethal. As soon as the two armies clashed, there was a dense rain of arrows that covered the sky. In just one clash, the Kanla Empire lost at least 10% of their soldiers. What shocked General McHale even more was that the Kingdom of Ruhr's arrows seemed to be endless. They did not stop attacking since the beginning of the battle. Under this terrifying rain of arrows, the Kanla Empire's soldiers couldn't advance at all. They could only passively take the hits, and their casualty rate kept increasing. General McHale saw that the situation wasn't good and wanted to send out 2 light cavalry groups to go around and attack the enemy from the side. However, he never thought that as soon as he sent out the 2 light cavalry groups, the Kingdom of Ruhr would immediately respond. The Kingdom of Ruhr had sent out 2 small groups of several dozen strange magic cars to stop the 2 light cavalry groups. Their mobility far surpassed the 2 light cavalry groups under General McHale that were known for their speed and agility. No matter how the 2 light cavalry groups went around them, they could easily stop them. Moreover, other than being equipped with those terrifying crossbows, they were also equipped with a powerful weapon that General McHale had never seen or even heard of before. The 2 light cavalry groups couldn't even touch the other side before they were easily defeated. In the end, there were less than 100 people who escaped, causing General McHale's surprise attack plan to come to an end. So the current situation on the battlefield was the Kanla Empire's side being beaten, not being able to fight back at all. When General McHale was hesitating, he suddenly found that there were several dozen flame red dots that came from the Kingdom of Ruhr's army. After a while, these several dozen dots of light turned into several dozen fireballs that quickly flew over. "Sir, be careful." The personal guard beside him had personally seen how terrifying these fireballs were. Without another word, he threw General McHale to the ground and placed several shields on top of him, completely covering him. Hong, 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 hong. Countless violent explosions rang out, and General McHale, who was at the bottom, could only feel the ground shaking violently. The terrifying explosions that were transmitted over were so loud that his ears lost their ability to respond for a moment. When the surroundings finally calmed down, General McHale forcefully pushed aside the personal guard on top of him. When he stood up to look, his heart turned cold. He could become a general of the Kanla Empire's army, so of course he had experienced hundreds of battles. What kind of tragic scene hadn't he seen before? However, the scene in front of him still sent chills down his spine. Looking around, other than him, there weren't many people who could stand at his field of vision. The originally flat grassland had now been blasted into several dozen deep pits that were more than 10 meters in diameter. The center of the deep pits was as smooth as a mirror, But the surroundings of the deep pits were densely packed with mutilated corpses whose faces couldn't be seen at all. The scene was as tragic as it could be. Looking at this scene in a daze, General Mikhail could only feel his lofty ambitions slowly being wiped out. Sir, we should retreat. A painful voice was heard from under his feet. General Mikhail looked down and was shocked to find that the personal guards who were blocking him earlier had been blown away along with the huge shields in their hands by the violent explosion. Only 2 personal guards were left at the bottom. One of the personal guards was lying on the ground motionlessly, clearly dead. The other personal guard's face was covered in blood and could only raise his head and make a weak sound. After saying this sentence with great difficulty, the personal guard's head drooped down and he didn't make another sound. General Mikhail's hands trembled slightly. He turned his head to look at the army of the Kingdom of Ruhr in the distance. He saw dozens of fiery red spots lighting up from time to time. Suddenly, a deep chill swept through his heart. His body trembled, and then he took a deep breath. He squeezed out 2 words from between his teeth with difficulty. Retreat. Hashtag. If it was said that the Kamla Empire's first attack on the Kingdom of Ruhr had suffered a severe defeat, while the other countries on the signs were shocked, they could also give reasons such as the Kamla Empire was too careless. The Kingdom of Ruhr must have made meticulous preparations. The Kamla Empire only sent out local legions, and so on. However, when the second attack was defeated, the entire continent was instantly speechless. This time, the attack launched by the Kamla Empire was personally led by General Mikhail of the Kamla Empire's military headquarters. He was also leading the 3rd Legion of the Kamla Empire's regular army. Although they also had 50,000 people, their combat strength was completely different from the 50,000 local legions from before. Under such circumstances, the Kamla Empire's second attack on the Kingdom of Ruhr had suffered a crushing defeat. This was truly inconceivable. What was even more inconceivable was that this time, not only did the Kingdom of Ruhr repel the Kamla Empire's invasion, they even took the opportunity to launch a counterattack. Within a week, they had continuously pursued the 3rd Legion of the Kamla Empire led by General Mikhail. They had been beaten until they had fled 300 kilometers into the Kamla Empire's territory before they could barely escape. According to the information that was leaked, apart from General Mikhail, there were less than 10,000 Kamla Empire soldiers that managed to escape with their lives. In other words, this time, the Kamla Empire's attack on the Kingdom of Ruhr had actually lost over 40,000 regular soldiers. Since the establishment of the Kamla Empire until now, apart from a war with the Malar Empire, the Kamla Empire had never suffered such a shocking loss. If the 2 losses were added together, this time, the Kamla Empire's invasion of the Kingdom of Ruhr was not only a complete failure, but they had also lost over 80,000 people. The loss of various resources was also incalculable. It could be said that they had suffered a crushing defeat. While all the countries on the signs were shocked and in disbelief, they all had the same question. What did the Kingdom of Ruhr rely on to cause the Kamla Empire to suffer such a crushing defeat? All sorts of information regarding the 2 battles between the 2 countries began to spread throughout the continent. After analyzing the information, all the countries discover a problem. The reason why the Kingdom of Ruhr was able to defeat the Kamla Empire so easily wasn't because they had powerful battle tactics, nor was it because the Kamla Empire had underestimated their enemy. The only reason was that the Kingdom of Ruhr's army was too terrifying. In the 2 attacks, the number of times both sides clashed was barely over 10 times, and this included the pursuit of the Kingdom of Ruhr. In reality, the number of times both sides clashed was only 5 times. And in these 5 battles, the Kamla Empire had suffered such shocking losses that they had completely lost their ability to fight. This meant that in a direct battle, the Kingdom of Ruhr's army was far superior to the Kamla Empire's army. But how could the Kingdom of Ruhr's army be able to surpass the Kamla Empire's regular army? And by a large margin? It must be known that the Kamla Empire and the Malar Empire were both signs. With their powerful national strength, the strength of their armies had always been at the top of the continent. After all sorts of messy information and analysis, all the information pointed to a single point. The key was the military magic machines that the Kingdom of Ruhr's army was equipped with. Chapter 864. Even if on the battlefield, the Rudsun Kingdom's army had beaten the Kandra Empire's army to the point where they couldn't match them. When General Mikhail led his remaining troops 300 kilometers into the Kandra Empire's territory, the Rudsun Kingdom immediately chose to retreat and didn't have any plans to chase them. After retreating from the Kamla Empire's territory, the Kingdom of Ruhr only strengthened their border defenses and did not do anything else. After the two defeats, the Kamla Empire also quieted down. The border between the two countries regained its peace as if the previous war had never happened. However, everyone knew that this peace was just a facade. The Kamla Empire was one of the two largest empires on the continent. Now that they had suffered a crushing defeat at the hands of a small country like the Kingdom of Ruhr, if they could not regain their dignity, the Kamla Empire's position in the signs would be severely affected. Therefore, the Kamla Empire would definitely make a comeback. This time, they would not underestimate the Kingdom of Ruhr like they did the previous two times. Everyone believed that the Kamla Empire was much stronger than the Kingdom of Ruhr. It was possible for them to suffer a loss at the hands of the Kingdom of Ruhr once or twice, but it would not be a problem for them to defeat the Kingdom of Ruhr in the end. Of course, this would require some time to prepare. After the second battle between the two countries ended, it was already winter of year 3789. The weather in other places on the signs had become noticeably colder. Although the Malar Empire was located in the north of the continent, most places in the country were already showing signs of winter. The private territory of the Marquis of Southgard was located in the southwest of the Malar Empire. It was relatively close to the center of the continent, so it was not particularly cold. But for the people who lived in the Lampari Kingdom and the Principality of Constantine, where winter was the same as spring and autumn in other countries, the current temperature in the Marquis of Southgard's territory made them feel a bit cold. A cold wind blew over, and Chairman Cantona couldn't help shivering. He tightened his leather clothes and felt a bit warmer. He turned to look at Baron Franklin beside him and found that he was only wearing a thin shirt that wasn't even buttoned up, but he was still standing there. He didn't seem to feel any coldness at all. Chairman Cantona couldn't help feeling emotional. This young man really was different. His ability to resist the cold was several times stronger than an old man like him who was over 40 years old. "Hey, Franklin, when will Sir Marquis be back?" Chairman Cantona asked. Baron Franklin looked into the distance and replied with a smile. "Grandfather said that he would be back for dinner, so I think he should be back soon." "Oh, and that's good." Chairman Cantona nodded. The first phase of the farmland renovation project will be finished today, so we need Sir Marquis to personally come back and inspect it. If you have any opinions, you should raise them as soon as possible. It's almost New Year's, and the fellows from the company are all anxious to go back for New Year's. Actually, if it's just an inspection, I can represent Grandfather. But Grandfather said that your Cantona Chamber of Commerce has helped the territory greatly this time, and we will be cooperating for a long time. So in order to strengthen our relationship, we have to have you stay here for a few days." Baron Franklin said with a faint smile. "Oh." Chairman Cantona looked at Baron Franklin with a bit of surprise. Since the fall harvest, he had led the Cantona Chamber of Commerce's subordinates here for close to 3 months. Although the Marquis of Southgard and Baron Franklin, who represented him as the supervisor, had been polite to them, Chairman Cantona could see that this politeness was built on the foundation of a noble's cultivation. It didn't mean that they cared about him. Of course, this was understandable since the other side was Sir Marquis of the Malar Empire, one of the top people in the signs. He was countless levels below a small company like theirs, so being polite on the surface was already considered good manners. Moreover, most of the reason was probably because of New Flyer's face. However, Chairman Cantona could clearly feel that Baron Franklin's words were filled with sincerity. It was clear that he wasn't just being polite and perfunctory. Seeing the sincere smile on Baron Franklin's face, Chairman Cantona was filled with doubt. What was the reason for their attitude to suddenly change this much? But after thinking about it, this wasn't important. This was because Cantona wanted to maintain a long-term relationship with the Marquis of Southgard. This would be a great help to the Cantona Chamber of Commerce in opening the market in the Malur Empire. For example, during the fall harvest this year, when the Cantona Chamber of Commerce displayed their talents in the Marquis of Southgard's territory, through the connections of the Marquis of Southgard, there were many other nobles of the Malur Empire that contacted the Cantona Chamber of Commerce, asking them to help with the harvest in their territories. In half a month of the fall harvest, the Cantona Chamber of Commerce had finished harvesting 50,000 hectares of land. They harvested an average of 100 hectares of land each day, helping 13 nobles finish harvesting in their territories. This shocking efficiency created a large response among the nobles of the Malur Empire. Before the fall harvest was over, there were countless nobles of the Malur Empire that contacted the Marquis of Southgard or directly contacted the Cantona Chamber of Commerce, hoping that the Cantona Chamber of Commerce would help them finish harvesting in their territories next spring. For these nobles, although the Cantona Chamber of Commerce had to pay a fee for helping with the harvest, because they could save a large amount of labor, it was more profitable. Moreover, the Cantona Chamber of Commerce's harvesting efficiency was very high, and the amount of grain wasted during the harvest was incredibly low. So no matter how it was calculated, it was more cost-effective than harvesting by themselves. The current Cantona Chamber of Commerce could be considered famous in the Malur Empire. Even if the Marquis of Southgard didn't contact them, they could still open up a business in the Malur Empire. Of course, Chairman Cantona wasn't that short-sighted. He firmly supported the Marquis of Southgard and was the first to reconstruct the land on the Marquis of Southgard territory, helping the Marquis of Southgard open up 300 hectares of farmland. Like this, as long as they reclaimed 300 hectares of farmland, the Marquis of Southgard territory's harvest would increase by at least 50% next fall. Perhaps it's because he's satisfied with this result that his attitude towards me has changed? Chairman Cantona had this thought in his mind. After considering it, he said to Baron Franklin with a nod, "All right, since Sir Marquis has given the invitation, how could I reject it? As for reconstructing the farmland, I have many questions to discuss with Sir Marquis, so I hope that I can talk to Sir Marquis more in the next few days. Grandfather will definitely be very happy to talk to you," Baron Franklin said with a smile. After the two talked for a bit, Baron Franklin left. Chairman Cantona stayed on the side to supervise the progress of the farmland before taking a magic car that passed by. They headed to the Magic Machine Industrial Base to the west of the Marquis of Southgard territory. After close to half a year of construction, the base was already taking shape. The factories were almost finished, and they would be able to start production at the beginning of next year. The companies that own these factories were currently recruiting workers through the Marquis of Southgard, preparing to start next year. According to the agreement between Sue E. and the Marquis of Southgard, the workers recruited would mainly come from the Marquis of Southgard territory. But because the Marquis of Southgard territory couldn't provide enough workers, they still needed to recruit from outside. The Marquis of Southgard had given the extra spots to his good friend Duke Makuros, so they would recruit around 3,000 to 4,000 workers from his territory. Because this would affect the labor force on Duke Makuros' territory, Duke Makuros had made a request to the Cantona Chamber of Commerce through the Marquis of Southgard. He hoped that the Cantona Chamber of Commerce would also reconstruct the farmland on Duke Makuros' territory. At the same time, the Marquis of Southgard and Duke Makuros had also placed orders for various agricultural magic machines from the New Flyer, which they had obtained the agreement of the New Flyer. If nothing unexpected happened, in at most 3 years, their territories would be like the Lampari Kingdom and the other countries, fully mechanized farming. Of course, this would affect the Cantona Chamber of Commerce's income, but Chairman Cantona wasn't surprised by this. When the Lampari Kingdom and the other countries fully mechanized farming, it had also impacted the Cantona Chamber of Commerce. But the Cantona Chamber of Commerce had still found their own market. Now the Malur Empire was several times bigger than the Lampari Kingdom and the other countries added together, so he was confident that he could find a place to live. Not to mention that Chairman Cantona's ambitions didn't stop here. After coming to the industrial base, Chairman Cantona found the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce's manager Riley, who was in charge of the construction of the industrial base, asking him about the questions in his heart. Why did the Marquis of Southgard suddenly become so enthusiastic? Then Riley gave Chairman Cantona an answer that he didn't expect at all. It's very simple. It's because the Kingdom of Ruhr defeated the Cantona Empire. Chairman Cantona blinked with a look of confusion. This? How is it related? Chapter 865. Although Cantona was the chairman of a decent company, he was only a normal farmer from outside Banna City, so he had limited experience and limited information. So he couldn't understand how the Kingdom of Ruhr's victory over the Kamla Empire was related to the Marquis of Southgard suddenly changing his attitude. But of course the Marquis of Southgard was clear on this. When Chairman Cantona found Riley, the Marquis of Southgard had been discussing the war between the Kingdom of Ruhr and the Kamla Empire with the two of them. According to the information from various sources, the reason why the Kamla Empire has been defeated on the battlefield is because the Kingdom of Ruhr is equipped with large amounts of military magic machines, so their army's battle strength far surpasses theirs. As for the military magic machine that played a key role, according to the information, it came from an unknown small company in the Stantine Duchy. The one who said this was a middle-aged man with a square face and a serious expression, looking very dignified. After saying this, he paused and looked at the Marquis of Southgard with a gaze of deep meaning. Marquis of Southgard, although this small company isn't famous in our Malar Empire, I think you should be very familiar with it. Duke Roosevelt, you must be talking about the new flyer. The Marquis of Southgard revealed a faint smile. He wasn't surprised that Duke Roosevelt, who held a lot of power in the Malar Empire's army, would suddenly change the topic to him. That's right, I didn't know about the new flyer, but if it said that I know it very well. I can only say that I know it better than the others in the Empire, but I don't know it in detail. Duke Roosevelt knit his brows. But I've heard that you've personally inspected the Principality of Constantine twice before bringing the new flyer to your territory. It seems like you're also working with Shinfei merchants and small companies from other countries to open factories on your territory? There's such a thing. The Marquis of Southgard nodded. Then, Marquis of Southgard, how much do you know about the new flyer's military magic machines? Duke Roosevelt kept asking. If I said that I didn't know anything about the military magic machines, would you believe me? The Marquis of Southgard spread his hands and shook his head before saying with a sigh, I was interested in the new flyer at first because I accidentally came into contact with the household magic machines their company. Then I found a new flyer and brought it to my territory, but it only's household magic. It didn't have any connection to the military magic machines. Really? Duke Roosevelt narrowed his eyes. Marquis Southgate turned to look at a middle-aged man with a kind face. Regarding the introduction of the new flyer and other merchants, I've made a report to the Empire's Department of Commerce and the Aristocratic Territory Management Office under the Aristocratic Parliament. Count Dang Pulu should know. The middle-aged man smiled and nodded. Yes, the Marquis of Southgard has made a complete report to the Department of Commerce, so the Department of Commerce is very clear about these matters, including the new flyer. The chambers of commerce that are expected to invest and operate on the Marquis of Southgard territory are all legitimate chambers of commerce from the Lampari Kingdom and the Principality of Constantine. There shouldn't be any problems. Duke Roosevelt glanced at Count Dangpulu and frowned slightly. He was a little dissatisfied. He wasn't interested in what the chambers of commerce were doing on the Marquis of Southgard's territory. He only cared about the cooperation between the new flyer and the Marquis of Southgard. Or to be more precise, whether there was any cooperation in the military magic machines. After the Kamla Empire's 2 invasions of the Kingdom of Ruhr failed miserably, the military magic machine's role in the Kingdom of Ruhr's resistance against the Kamla Empire's invasion immediately attracted the attention of all the countries on the continent. As the only enemy of the Kamla Empire on the continent, the Malar Empire naturally paid more attention to this. He represented the military to find the Marquis of Southgard in hopes of obtaining more information about the military magic machines from the Marquis of Southgard. However, the Marquis of Southgard's attitude was somewhat uncooperative, which made him a little dissatisfied. After a moment of silence, he composed himself and made his expression more serious. He stared straight at the Marquis of Southgard. Marquis of Southgard, the military magic machines are very important, and the Empire's military attaché is of great importance to this. So I hope you can cooperate with the military and provide as much accurate information as possible. The Marquis of Southgard glanced at Count Dang Pulu next to him. Seeing him nod slightly, he understood. He deliberately paused and nodded. Well, as a citizen of the Empire, it's my duty to contribute to the Empire. But I really don't know much about the military magic machines, so I can't provide too much specific information. Hearing this, Duke Roosevelt's face sank. But the Marquis of Southgard changed the topic. But I can be the middleman and help the military get in touch with a new flyer. What do you think? Duke Roosevelt's expression immediately eased. He laughed and said, "If that's the case, that's great. The military attaché's great importance to this matter, so I hope you can get in touch with a new flyer as soon as possible." No problem. Seeing that the Marquis of Southgard had agreed, Duke Roosevelt didn't waste any more time. He immediately bid farewell to the Marquis of Southgard and left. After leaving the Marquis of Southgard and Count Dang Pulu, the Marquis of Southgard was silent for a while. He frowned and asked Count Dang Pulu, "The Ministry of Commerce is very cooperative this time." Count Dang Pulu looked up and laughed. "This is His Majesty's personal order. No one dares to ignore it." The Marquis of Southgard was shocked. Even His Majesty is alarmed. That's right. Count Dang Pulu glanced at the Marquis of Southgard. His expression also became serious. "Lord Marquis, you should know that for the Empire, only the Kamla Empire can be considered our enemy on this continent. But this enemy that we have to admit is strong was defeated by a small country like the Kingdom of Ruhr because of the military magic machines. Do you think that His Majesty wouldn't care about this?" The Marquis of Southgard was silent for a bit before he couldn't help nodding. "Oh, that's right. Speaking of this, it really is unbelievable. The Kamla Empire's 3rd Regiment could be considered the elites of the Kamla Empire, but they couldn't fight back against the Kingdom of Ruhr's army. This is just too unbelievable." After saying this, Marquis Southgard's expression became strange. "Speaking of this, I only wanted the household magic machines made by the new flyer, so I wanted to pull them over. But I never thought that I would pull in such a big fish." Count Dang Pulu revealed a smile and waved his hand before continuing, "Let the army headquarters worry about the military magic machines. Compared to that, I care more about the household magic machines you mentioned. Lord Marquis, you are the one who understands these things the most. Do you think these things have a future in the Empire?" "Of course." The Marquis of Southgard's expression immediately became serious. "I am 100% certain that with the convenience these household magic machines bring, they will be welcomed by everyone in the Empire. I can even say that in just a few years, these household magic machines will be popular all over the Empire. Is it like this?" Count Duplow rubbed his chin in thought for a bit before coming closer to Marquis Southgate and saying with a serious look, "Then, Lord Marquis, I represent the Department of Commerce to formally make a request to you. I hope that you can help me contact the Fresteck Chamber of Commerce as an intermediary." No problem. Compared to Duke Roosevelt, the Marquis of Southgard didn't hesitate to agree this time. ####. Sue glanced at the tall stack of invitations that Tvisty had piled up in front of him. He then pointed at the trash can in the distance. "Throw them all away." "All of them?" Tvisty asked in surprise. "Yes, all of them," Sue nodded and added, "If there are any more of these things in the future, don't show them to me. Just throw them away." "Okay," Tvisty responded. She picked up the stack of invitations again and threw them all into the trash can. When Sue saw her actions, he smiled with satisfaction. This was one of the advantages of being an elf girl. Compared to her human subordinates, she was much more obedient. She would never ask unnecessary questions. If it were Kennard, he would definitely ask Sue E to explain why he was doing this. In fact, the reason for doing this was very simple. Sue E was simply too lazy to go. During this period of time, the invitations to the higher-ups of New Flyer were like snowflakes. As the president, the number of invitations that Sue E received was even more exaggerated. Although there were many important people who sent out these invitations, and there were even some who came from the Kamla Empire and the Malar Empire, Sue E didn't want to pay attention to them. He had already expected this situation. Since the Kingdom of Ruhr performed so well in resisting the Kamla Empire's invasion, then the military magic machines would naturally attract the attention of countless people. Naturally, the New Flyer that produced these military magic machines would become the focus of everyone's attention. It could be said that the New Flyer had perfectly made a name for itself in the continent through the war between the Kingdom of Ruhr and the Kamla Empire. This made the New Flyer a truly famous chamber of commerce in the continent and successfully completed Sue Yi's goal. However, Sue Yi wasn't blinded by this point. It was good to make the New Flyer famous in the continent, but Sue Yi's goal wasn't to promote the military magic machines. Instead, it was to let everyone know about the New Flyer through the military magic machines and then understand the New Flyer's main production of civilian magic machines. The problem that troubled Sue E was how to shift the attention of these people from the military magic machines to the civilian magic machines. Chapter 866. Seeing Twisty turn around after throwing away the invitations, Sue E already had a preliminary plan in his mind. "Give me the annual financial report that Seabass submitted," Sue E said. Twisty didn't even need to rummage through it. She directly pulled out a thick report from the cabinet and handed it to Sue E. This was also one of Twisty's advantages as an elf. Her memory was extremely outstanding. No matter where something was placed, she could remember it clearly. As long as Sue E asked, she could immediately find what Sue E needed. Moreover, she placed all the documents and materials in an extremely neat and orderly manner. Even if Sue E personally came to look for them, he could find the documents he wanted without much effort. Coupled with her obedient and taciturn personality, it could be said that she had all the qualities of an excellent secretary. Not to mention, she had a sweet appearance and was extremely pleasing to the eye. If this was on Earth, she would be the perfect secretary in the hearts of all bosses. At first, Sue E didn't have much interest in Twisty. He felt that she was deliberately arranged by Elder Lysania, so his attitude towards her was neither cold nor warm. But after getting along with her for half a year, Sue E had gradually gotten used to having her by his side. Sometimes Sue even thought that if Twisty were to leave now, it would take him a while to get used to it. Shaking his head to get rid of these chaotic thoughts, Sue E focused his attention on the annual financial report in his hand. Although it was only the beginning of December, according to past practice, Seabass, the financial manager of New Flyer, would submit an annual financial report at this time every year. This report couldn't be considered the final annual financial report. It was just a report that Seabass had made based on the Frestac Chamber of Commerce's financial situation this year. The contents didn't just include the annual financial report. It also included the overall financial situation and estimates for the coming year. Although it was only a rough evaluation, it was very important for Sue Yi's plan for the next year. Therefore, she had always attached great importance to this report. From this report, it could be seen that New Flyer's total profit for the 11 months up to November had exceeded 30 million gold coins. Since December was the winter season, the New Flyer's household magic machines were the peak sales season. Therefore, the monthly profit was only second to the 2 months of summer. It was estimated that the monthly profit would be more than 3 million gold coins. In other words, the New Flyer's profits for this year would exceed 33 million gold coins, which was an increase of nearly 30% compared to last year. It could be said that the company's development was as smooth as ever. But if one were to look at the data in the report, they would discover that New Flyer's profit growth this year was mainly concentrated on military magic machines. Compared to last year, The profits from the military magic machines had increased by more than 4 million gold coins, accounting for more than half of the total profits for the year. Based on the current situation, as long as New Flyer could increase its production capacity next year, the profits from the military magic machines would be even more impressive next year. Therefore, during the internal discussion of the New Flyer's upper echelons, including Kennard, all suggested that the company should invest more energy into the military magic machines next year. They should try their best to increase the production capacity and realize a large increase in the company's profits. However, Sui rejected this suggestion. Sui expressed that even if it was unavoidable to increase the investment in the military magic machines, New Flyer's main focus would still be on the civilian magic machines. This would not change. According to Sui's estimates, New Flyer would officially open the doors to the Kamla Empire and Malar Empire next year. All sorts of civilian magic machines would enter the markets of the two empires. Therefore, New Flyer would welcome all sorts of civilian magic machines, especially the huge demand for the household magic machines. It should be prepared early. Even though the others did not doubt Sui's judgment, the hearts of the upper echelons of the company were still somewhat shaken by the huge profits that the military magic machines would bring. Sui wanted to shift everyone's attention from the military magic machines to the civilian magic machines. First, he had to change the minds of these people. Twisty, you asked Seabass about financial knowledge before. How is your learning going? Sui asked. Twisty hesitated for a moment, as if she was a little embarrassed. I only learned some of the most basic knowledge. I'm still very far from it. Then do you understand this report? Sui asked again. Yes, no problem. Twisty nodded. Supervisor Seabass taught me from the very beginning. He taught me from the beginning. That's good. Come here. Sui waved his hand at Twisty, indicating for her to stand beside him. Then he pointed at a page in the financial report in his hand and said, Do you understand what this means? Twisty looked at Sui with some astonishment and replied, This describes the trend of the company's wealth from June to November. From the curve of the data, there is a clear increase in August and September, and then a large decrease in October. Supervisor Seabass analyzed that this is because the Kingdom of Ruhr ordered a large number of military magic machines and other related materials from the company in August and September. Yes, that's right. Sui nodded. But did you notice a problem? This curve doesn't seem to be very reasonable, right? Yes. Supervisor Seabass said that this is because of the war between the Kingdom of Ruhr and the Kingdom of Lagos. It can't be used as a reference under normal circumstances. He's right. Twisty, I want you to copy this report and make two similar reports. One is about the profit analysis of the company's military magic machines, and the other is about the civilian magic machines. Can you do it? Sui asked. Twisty looked at Sui in surprise. She didn't ask why, but after thinking for a moment, she shook her head and said, I can't make it as detailed as Supervisor Seabass' report. I'm not asking you to make it exactly the same as this report. I just need you to show the most basic meaning. Can you do it? Twisty slightly knit her brows. After seriously thinking for a bit, she nodded. There shouldn't be a problem. Then that's good. Sui placed the financial report in his hands into Twisty's arms. This will be a test of your financial ability. When you return to the Moon Shadow Tribe, Elder Lasagna will definitely put you in charge of this, so it's good if you get used to it early. Yes, Sir Chairman. Twisty replied with a nod. That's right. Speaking of when you return to the Moon Shadow Tribe, I suddenly thought of a problem. When will Agnes come back? Sui suddenly asked. Twisty blinked. I'm not sure. Then help me contact Elder Lasagna and tell her that I'm thinking of Agnes. If she doesn't have any problems, then let her come back. Twisty silently looked at Sui for a while before hesitantly asking, Sir Chairman, actually I've always wanted to ask you a question. Have you really fallen in love with Agnes? Why are you asking this question? Sui asked back with a bit of surprise. Because I'm really curious. Twisty honestly replied. We've been taught since we were young that humans and elves are two completely different races. Humans have always been hostile to us elves, telling us to avoid contact with humans as much as possible, even not appearing in front of the elves. But I feel that Agnes should have really fallen in love with Sir Chairman. So I want to know, does Sir Chairman love Agnes? The education you received in the tribe before is already outdated. If it was now, not to mention others, even Elder Lysania wouldn't tell you to avoid contact with humans as much as possible, right? The Elder wants us to interact with humans as much as possible and try to learn the advantages of humans that we elves lack. She sent me here in the hopes that I would be able to learn a lot of good things from you, President. Elder Lysania still thinks quite highly of me. Sue, you revealed a smile and continued. Let's go back to the previous question, whether or not I love Agnes. This question isn't easy to answer because the definition of love between us humans and you elves is different. I can only tell you that Agnes is very important to me right now. If anyone wants to hurt her, I definitely won't agree. I'm willing to live with her forever in this life. She is already one of my most important family members. If I say it like this, can you understand? I can roughly understand. Twisty nodded. But Sir Chairman, you don't only have Agnes as your wife, right? Didn't you always say that young Miss Steele is the most important person in your heart? He felt a bit awkward as he gave a cough and said, This. Steele is indeed the most important person to me, but Agnes is also very important. Is that so? Twisty seemed a bit doubtful. Us elves will only have one life and death partner in our lives, but you humans can have many? He felt even more awkward. It's not like this, after all. Everyone is different. Oh, Twisty looked like she didn't really understand. After thinking about it, she said with a smile, All right, Sir Chairman, I'll answer your question. Agnes is currently in the most crucial period, so I think the Elder won't let her come back right now. What most crucial period? He was very confused. I've asked this question to Elder Lysania many times, but she never told me. It really is strange. Is there need to be so mysterious? Twisty revealed a naughty smile. Sir Chairman, you don't need to be in a rush. If nothing unexpected happens, you'll know in half a year. Seeing that Twisty didn't say anything, he helplessly rolled his eyes. All right, tell Elder Lysania for me that if she isn't willing to tell me why she won't let Agnes come back, I'll refuse to support your tribe's territory in the southwest of the Sack Kingdom. Twisty's eyes opened wide as a trace of anger appeared on her little face. Sir Chairman, you're abusing your position for personal gain. He gave a laugh. I'm abusing my position for personal gain? What can you do to me? Chapter 867. Not supporting the Moon Shadow Tribe's territory in the southwest of the Sack Kingdom was of course a joke. This was because after the Moon Shadow Tribe obtained this territory, in just a single month, they had turned this barren land into a flourishing land with lush vegetation. In this territory, the Moon Shadow Tribe used the special understanding of the elves to plant many special flowers and plants, making it the main source of raw materials for the Moon Shadow Tribe's fertilizer production. The fertilizer wasn't just the main source of income for the Moon Shadow Tribe. It was also a very important agricultural resource for the surrounding countries. If the Frestac Chamber of Commerce suddenly cut off their support for this territory, not to mention the dissatisfaction of the Moon Shadow Tribe, the surrounding countries would be the first to raise objections against the Frestac Chamber of Commerce. Not to mention that fertilizer could be considered an important part of the magic machine industry. To this was a very important point to attract everyone's attention from the military magic machines back to the civilian magic machines. So how could he easily let it have a problem? After telling Twisty how to make the two financial reports that separated the military magic machines from the civilian magic machines, he left the office and planned on heading to the Academy of Magic. To make the civilian magic machines more eye-catching, he needed something that could attract people's attention. In the past 2 years, because New Flyer had focused on improving the quality and performance of the household magic machines, there hadn't been anything that attracted people's attention. Now that he wanted to attract people's attention, he needed to work on this. When he came out of the New Flyer office, He was about to get into his personal magic sedan when he was surprised to find a familiar pure white magic sedan quickly driving over. The pure white magic sedan stopped beside Sue-E, and when the driver's door opened, Steele came out. "Hey Steele, why are you back?" Sue-E asked in a surprised voice. "Aren't you promoting in the Fog Kingdom?" "What? You don't welcome me back?" Steele touched her shoulder-length hair before walking to Sue-Ye's side with a faint smile. She reached out her hand and pinched his face. "Will you have more freedom if I'm not around?" "What are you talking about?" Sue-E rolled his eyes at her. "Tell me, why did you suddenly come back?" "That's right. There's something, and it's related to you, Chairman Sue." "Something to do with me? What is it?" Sue-E was even more puzzled. Steele looked around. "Let's find somewhere else to sit down and talk." "All right." 20 minutes later, the two of them appeared on a floating platform near the cliff behind Sue-Ye's private manor. Steele took a sip of the warm tea and exhaled softly. "The Principality of Constantine is the best. Winter is not cold at all." "It was so cold in the Fog Kingdom a few days ago." Sue-E laughed. "That's the north of the continent, after all. Of course, it's much colder than the Principality of Constantine. Didn't you see that I came back from the Malar Empire early? I was just worried that if I came back any later, I would freeze to death in the Malar Empire." "You're so sly. You came back yourself and left those people in the Malar Empire." Steele glared at Sue-E with a flirtatious expression. Although Steele was now a mother of 2 children and close to 30 years old, compared to the first time they met, Steele was not as youthful anymore. She was more mature and charming, and even more beautiful. Sue-E laughed. "They chose that themselves. If I asked them to come back, they definitely wouldn't be willing. Of course, if they can take root in the Malar Empire, it will be a great help to the future development of those people's chambers of commerce. How could they give up this opportunity because of a little bit of cold?" After saying that, Steele turned to look at the sun that was not blazing above the sea. She was in a daze for a while before continuing. "I came back from the Fog Kingdom not only because I don't like the cold in the Fog Kingdom." He put down the teacup in his hand and stared at Steele. He knew she was going to get to the point. Steele suddenly stopped her plan to continue promoting the magic illusion projector in the Fog Kingdom and hurried back to the Principality of Constantine to find him. Clearly, there was something very important. "Say it. If there's anything I can help with, don't hesitate. We're husband and wife after all," Sue-E said with a smile. Steele turned to look at Sue-E and revealed a smile with a trace of apology in her eyes. "Actually, I didn't like to hear you say that in the past." Sue-E was stunned for a moment before he understood. He shrugged and said, "I understand. You're a self-reliant woman. You don't want others to think that you relied on me to develop the New Moon Chamber of Commerce. I know this very well, so unless you take the initiative to ask, I rarely say that I want to help you do anything, right? Sue-E, you must have had a headache because of my willfulness in the past, right?" Steele asked as she stared into Sue-Ye's eyes. Sue-E shook his head with a smile. "Of course not. Self-reliant and independent is one of your strengths. Since you made your own choice, I will only support you. Why would I have a headache? Then if I change now, I think. What's that saying again? You mentioned it to me before. What saying?" Sue-E was confused. "I remember now. It's called hugging someone's thigh." Steele clapped her hands and said with an excited expression, "Sue-E, I've changed my mind and decided to hug your thigh. Are you happy?" Sue-E couldn't help smiling as he stretched out his right leg. "Come, hug me however you want." Steele angrily hammered Sue-Ye's thigh. "It's hugging your new flyer's thigh." Sue-E laughed and took back his leg. After thinking for a bit, he asked with a serious expression, "You mean your New Moon Chamber of Commerce wants to expand cooperation with our new flyer?" "Pretty much." Sue-E, haven't you been thinking about letting people not only focus on the military magic machines, but also the civilian magic machines?" Steele said, "Yes." "What? Do you have a good idea?" "Yes. When I was promoting the magic illusion projection device in the Fog Kingdom, I discovered a problem. That is, although many people in the Fog Kingdom have heard of the new flyer and know about the magic machines, most of them can't say what the magic machines are. That's normal." Sue-E shrugged. "After all, The Fok Kingdom has just introduced the magic machines from our Chamber of Commerce. It's natural that the civilians don't know about them. So, after careful consideration, I feel that the new flyer should strengthen the promotion in this area. But when it comes to promotion, whether it's through posters or newspapers, it's not intuitive enough. People can't really understand what the so-called magic machines are used for. So you thought of using an illusion film as an introduction? Sue E interrupted. Steele was startled. She looked at Sue E with resentment. Can you not be so smart? Sue E looked at the sky, speechless. Television commercials were very common on Earth. How could he not have thought of it? But because the magic illusion projector hadn't been popularized in the surrounding countries, especially in the countries that didn't popularize magic machines, it was a new thing. Even if Sue E wanted to use the magic illusion projector to promote it, it was hard to achieve due to the limited hardware. And there was another important reason. Steele had always wanted to develop the new Moon Chamber of Commerce on her own. She didn't want to have too much to do with the new flyer. Even when the new Moon Chamber of Commerce purchased a large number of magic illusion projection devices from the new flyer, they were all clearly traded and done meticulously. So, Sue didn't want to be the one to bring up this idea. He wanted to wait until the time was right before deciding whether to bring up this idea based on Steele's situation. Now that Steele suddenly thought it through and brought up this idea, everyone was happy. I've thought about it. Because our new Moon Chamber of Commerce isn't that famous, if we want to quickly popularize the magic illusion projection device in the other countries, it will be very difficult and waste a lot of time. So, I hope that we can be bound together with a new flyer and promote it like the other household magic machines. Of course, at the same time, our new Moon Chamber of Commerce will also make an illusion film for the various household magic machines of your new flyer to promote them. Although the words you and us from Steele made Sue E feel a bit awkward, he knew that Steele's personality was very clear, so it wasn't a problem. Of course it's not a problem. How about this? We can sign a promotion agreement. No matter where our new flyer promotes household magic machines, we will prioritize the magic illusion projection device. Then your new Moon Chamber of Commerce will prioritize our new flyer's products in the illusion film. This is beneficial to both of us. That's what I meant, Steele said with a nod. Other than that, our new Moon Chamber of Commerce will strive to make more modern illusion films. This way, we can put the various household magic machines in the illusion film. While people watch the illusion film, they can also directly understand the use of the household magic machines. Oh, Sue, he was a bit surprised. He didn't think that not only did Steele think of television commercials, she even thought of product placement. Just from this aspect, Steele could be considered a genius in the world of advertising. Thinking of this, Sue Yi's heart suddenly skipped a beat. How about this, Steele? I'll represent the new flyer and formally propose a cooperation to your new Moon Chamber of Commerce. I hope that your new Moon Chamber of Commerce will make a special continuity film for our new flyer. The name will be The Development of the New Flyer. What do you think? Steele's eyes lit up. This is a great idea. Chapter 868. The reason why Steele said that Sue Yi's suggestion was a good idea was naturally because there were countless eyes on the signs that were on New Flyer. If they released this series of documentaries, it would definitely attract the attention of these people. Everyone wanted to know what kind of magic this unknown company in a small country like the Principality of Constantine had that allowed the Kingdom of Ruhr to repel the two invasions of the powerful Kamla Empire after receiving their support. The one who cared the most about this was, of course, the Kamla Empire that had suffered 2 consecutive defeats. There was less than a week until the new year, and most people on the continent were preparing to welcome the new year. A diplomatic group from the Kamla Empire passed through the Norton Duchy and the Mirando Duchy before entering the Lampari Kingdom's Anvilmar city. With the recommendation of the Kamla Empire ambassador to the Lampari Kingdom, the diplomatic group was able to see Queen Seveni in the palace. The mission of this diplomatic group on the surface was to represent the Kamla Empire's emperor to send his New Year greetings to Queen Seveni. At the same time, they brought a series of cooperation agreements that the Kamla Empire had proposed to the Lampari Kingdom. Based on the surface, This diplomatic group was sent by the Kanla Empire each year, so it wasn't strange. This was because the Lampari Kingdom and the Kanla Empire had always been in contact, so the relationship between the two sides was quite close. Sending a diplomatic group, other than maintaining the normal relationship between the two sides, was also for some trade between the two countries. In the past, the Kanla Empire's diplomatic group would bring some companies from the Kanla Empire to trade with the companies from the Lampari Kingdom, which was considered a method to strengthen the relationship between the two sides. But before this, because the Kanla Empire was much stronger than the Lampari Kingdom, sending a diplomatic group was just for show. It was just to express their attitude, and there wasn't much trade between the two sides. The Kanla Empire's companies that came with the diplomatic group to the Lampari Kingdom were all small companies that didn't have much fame in the Kanla Empire. But this year was completely different. This time, the Kanla Empire's diplomatic group was not only larger than before, it was also much higher. In the past, the leader of the diplomatic group was an official sent by the Kanla Empire. They brought no more than 10 representatives from small companies and came to trade with the Lampari Kingdom. But this diplomatic group was personally led by the Kanla Empire's Minister of Commerce, Marquis Descartes. Following the diplomatic group were several famous companies from the Kanla Empire, even including the representative of the #1 company on the continent, the Chimera Chamber of Commerce. It was an unprecedented scale, because before the diplomatic group came, the Kanla Empire's ambassador to the Lampari Kingdom had already been notified. Although Seveni was a bit surprised, she was already prepared. She personally prepared a banquet in the palace to welcome the diplomatic group. The banquet was very happy and peaceful, but after the banquet, the Kanla Empire's diplomatic group leader, Marquis Descartes, had a private talk with Seveni, causing sparks to fly everywhere. "Your Majesty, this is the goodwill the Empire is expressing to your country. Why aren't you willing to accept it?" Descartes Marquis asked in a deep voice. Seveni narrowed her eyes and wanted to give a cold laugh. This Marquis Descartes had been polite in the beginning, but when it came to the specifics, he revealed the arrogant face of someone from the Kanla Empire. His tone was filled with a commanding tone, like what he said was right and proper and others had to follow it. Of course, if his suggestion was beneficial to the Lampari Kingdom, Seveni was too lazy to care about his tone. But this fellow represented the Kanla Empire's Department of Commerce to Seveni, requesting the Lampari Kingdom to give the Kanla Empire all the magic machine technology the Lampari Kingdom had. How could Seveni agree to this? Even though Marquis Descartes also said that the Kanla Empire would compensate the Lampari Kingdom, such as establishing an alliance with the Lampari Kingdom and ensuring the Lampari Kingdom's leadership position in the southwest corner of Signs. At the same time, he also promised Seveni a series of practical measures. For example, the Kanla Empire would open up trade channels with the Lampari Kingdom. Specifically, they would allow more product from the Lampari Kingdom to enter the Kanla Empire, and they would reduce tariffs on most products, especially products related to magic machines. For example, the Kanla Empire would open up the export of domestic products to the Lampari Kingdom. For products like the Kanla Empire that the Lampari Kingdom lacked before, the Kanla Empire would take the initiative to lower the price and guarantee that they would give priority to the Lampari Kingdom. If this was before, for a small country like the Lampari Kingdom to receive the attention of one of the two empires of the continent like the Kanla Empire, giving them all this support and preferential policies, they would be very happy to accept this, especially since the Lampari Kingdom had always been suppressed by the Sac Kingdom. If they could be recognized as an ally by the Kanla Empire, it would be equal to obtaining the best protective talisman, guaranteeing that the Sac Kingdom wouldn't dare act presumptuously again. But for the current Lampari Kingdom, not only were these conditions not attractive, Seveni could easily tell that the Kanla Empire's goal was the magic machine technology that the Lampari Kingdom currently had. There are almost no benefits to this, and it was very likely that it would cause great harm to the magic machine industry in the Lampari Kingdom. So how could Seveni agree? However, when Seveni said that she needed to seriously consider it, which was actually a tactful rejection, Marquis Descartes revealed a look of disbelief. It was like he couldn't understand why 70 wouldn't agree to these conditions. 70 was silent for a bit before calmly replying, Descartes Marquis, I'm very grateful for the goodwill the Camla Empire has shown us, but I'm very sorry that I can't transfer all the magic machine technology to the Camla Empire. Why? Descartes Marquis asked with a frown. Could it be that these things aren't something that can be done with a single word from your majesty? Or could it be that you can't even control the small companies in your country? Descartes Marquis' words weren't polite at all. He was basically doubting 70's control in the Lampari kingdom. Descartes Marquis, as the Camla Empire's commerce minister, does this mean that the Camla Empire can control all the companies in the Camla Empire as you wish? 70 gave a soft snort and said without any politeness, If it's like this, I really have to sympathize with the large companies of the Camla Empire. Descartes Marquis was a bit surprised. He knew that his words were a bit rash, but he didn't plan on backing down because of this. He looked into 70's eyes and kept asking, Your Majesty, I believe that as long as you're willing, this isn't a problem. No, I just said that this isn't something I could decide. 70 waved her hand. 70 waved her hand. The magic machine technology you mentioned, the core is in the hands of New Flyer. Our Lampari Kingdom's magic machine companies are only authorized by New Flyer. Strictly speaking, they don't have the right to transfer this technology. Descartes Marquis knit his brows. Since they already have this technology, why can't they transfer it? Could it be that New Flyer can do something to them? 70 finally couldn't help giving a cold laugh. Descartes Marquis, have you heard of patents before? Patents? Descartes Marquis thought for a bit before slowly shaking his head. What does that mean? 70 gave him a general explanation of the use of patents before adding, These patents have been approved by the Magicians' Union headquarters, so they're protected by the Sorcerers' Guild. If any company violates the patents, they will be punished by the Magicians' Union headquarters. Hearing that these so-called patents were actually related to the Magicians' Union headquarters, Descartes Marquis couldn't help knitting his brows. The Camla Empire was one of the two empires in signs. Other than the Malar Empire, the only thing they had scruples about was the Sorcerers' Guild that was spread across the signs and had influence on all the magicians on the continent. Unless they had no choice, the Camla Empire wouldn't challenge the authority of the Sorcerers' Guild since there were no benefits at all. Seeing that Descartes Marquis looked troubled, 70 revealed a faint smile and suggested, Descartes Marquis, if the Camla Empire is really interested in magic machine technology, why don't you just discuss it with New Flyer? This, Descartes Marquis couldn't help revealing a bitter smile. If possible, why wouldn't he want to discuss it with New Flyer? But based on the information from various sources, it was because New Flyer secretly provided the military magic machines to the Kingdom of Ruhr that caused the Camla Empire's failure. So New Flyer had already been sentenced to death in the eyes of many people in the Camla Empire. The Camla Empire was discussing how to deal with this damn New Flyer. So how could they run to New Flyer to discuss cooperation? This time he had personally led a diplomatic group to discuss cooperation with the Lampari Kingdom in terms of magic machines. He had even obtained many preferential conditions for the Lampari Kingdom from the Empire's parliament before leaving, all for the sake of understanding magic machines through other means. Of course, it would be best if he could obtain more information on the military magic machines, making it easier for the Empire to move in the future. But the Lampari Kingdom wasn't cooperating at all, which made it hard for him. But the Lampari Kingdom's attitude wasn't unexpected because this was something that the Camla Empire had requested the Lampari Kingdom to stop sending supplies to the Kingdom of Ruhr, but they had been rejected. Marquis Descartes looked at the smiling Queen 70 and gave a sigh in his heart. It seems like I have to use the second plan from before, that you're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.